ら祖軍が受けたまった。
なんだこ
全祖兵に次ぐこたびの栄えある海戦の一陣、我ら祖軍が受けたまった。
なんだこのバカでけえ声は。
隣の戦場だぞ。
この戦で秦は滅ぶ。この戦は深く歴史に刻まれること間違いない。この大戦の口火を切る誉れ高き者は林北貴様だ。おう、
先方は。
よっしゃよっしゃ。我が名はその豪将林北。
林武君、そこか。同金の敵は。
我こそこの壮大な戦の幕を開ける者である。地を揺るがすのは誰か。天を震わすのは誰か。沈め戦軍。戦軍突撃じゃ。将軍に続け。
さすが公将軍、そうこなくったよ。俺たちも続くぞ。突撃大戦隊、この大戦の口火を切るのは俺たちだ。
Yo, what's up? What's up? This your guy, very Hanma, 1 versus a million. I'm not your fan. I'm not your stand for. I am brother. Yes, thank you guys for coming through. Yes, it's a Hanma Force. This is a Geek-verse introduction to the movie night, to the anime night for tonight. Yes, and what we'll be featuring, yes, is Baki, the new arc. Baki Do, the Invincible Samurai. Yes, which is our boy Musashi Miyamoto. If you haven't been following the manga, which you should have, which you're tripping if you ain't, yeah, yeah. So I already know what all that is going to entail. So I will also reserve my my thoughts in full till after we watch the series in its entirety. It's going to be all the episodes. All right, and yeah, so within this introduction, I'll also be giving the geek. We'll be diving into the Geek-verse news. That's what we'll be dealing with everything that's that's related to the geekdom. Yes, and such. I have some, yeah, some pretty interesting videos to share with you brothers today. So, oh man, like one video I've seen, but the others I haven't. But when I seen this, I was like, wow. I don't know why Rumble is not popping up with my with my little pictures or whatever, my background pictures. But anyway, yeah, but man, I was like, wow. One of them, I'm like, Rob. I'm like, damn, Rob surprised me. I'm like, shit, salute to Rob from Comics Explained. Salute. As we'll be sharing a few of Brother Rob's videos in this Geek-verse. Okay. And yeah, man, because yeah, he surprised me. I'm like, salute to him, man, because yeah, Brother Rob just posted a video of him covering the indie comic, which this is basically of the antagonist, as you call it, where the main characters of the story, is basically is black. So yeah, and it's pretty good. It's pretty decent. We'll get to that. Along with, man, just some other geek stuff too, man. Like, oh god, oh, when it comes to the video game world, oh man, the PS5 went up on its prices. That's just shocking. I'm like, wow. I'm like, damn. So these motherfuckers basically is trying to get you to where you're spending a whole G. Damn it. you know, a whole thousand them on the system. No, I'm cool. What the hell? I'll wait. No rush here when it comes to the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. Hell no, son. I'm good. And the games too, what, already costing like what, $70, $80? Oh hell no. And the scores for Crimson Desert, was kind of low at first, but as the game, as a game, had to take, had to, uh, I would say, it had to, I don't know, it had to take its time with the people had to take its time playing it. Those who choose to play like past 6 to 8 hours, to get to the real good parts of the game, till it really, really starts like, to open up to you. So, can cause you to gravitate towards it. And I'm like, I can't remember a game I played like that at all, like where it took me that long to to get really into it. So it's just like, yeah, you got to be a real serious adventure, sci-fi, RPG type of fan. So, and yeah, and as the game progressed, when the and basically lasting like for what, since they put it out with like a week or two ago. Yeah, so since it's been like for about that long, it had to take that long, I guess, for people to start, really get hip to it, and for the reviews, to start coming up with it, uh, with the ranking it up to like a higher level than where it was, to where now people was like, giving it some great reviews and shit. So I'm like, okay, well, all right, my boy Brad, the Rad Brad, is playing it. Shout out to him. And yeah, I'll catch up with his videos on that too. But damn it, man, like, and you can't find one video of Crimson Desert where, of a gameplay where it's just 5 or 10 minutes. No, no, you got, it's like an hour, 2 hours each video. So not that I'll be glued just to that, what I mean? I'll be doing like simultaneously or like other shit too while I'm watching, the gameplay. But I may watch it to some degree when it comes to certain gameplays, because if I'm playing the game, I don't want to like spoil it for myself to some degree. So yeah, like following all the way through step by step with the person, who's giving the walkthrough. So I am, I'll get to certain points like where I'll have like, okay, 3 paths I got to take, but I don't want to take one path and it takes me further along in the game, and to where I'll never be able to come back to that specific area. So, so I will want to see like those other paths, obviously, of what's in those paths, like treasures, uh, like badass weaponry, whatever it is, that you can use, there'll be a great use to you further along in the game. So, yeah. Um, that, or if I'm not getting the game, I just like to enjoy, one of my bros who I'm subscribed to, you know, and I'll just check out their gameplay, just sit back and watch it. Um, so yeah, so that's how I may treat, Crimson Desert to some degree. But yeah, but other than that, man, shoot, yeah, shout out to you guys. Thank you guys for coming through. Please hit the follow over here on the Rumble side. Hit the Cash App if you're willing, which is in the description, and will be in the chat here shortly. All right, hit the Cash App for us over here, on Hanma Force. We'll be having a Hanma Force anime night tonight. After we're done with this stream, we'll be going directly to that. It took me a little minute, y'all, than desired, because there was a hiccup, with the anime sites that a lot of people use. A lot, and when I mean a lot of people use. these anime sites. So yeah, and a lot of people was kind of pissed. One of them was kind of down for a little bit. So we can kind of consider it maintenance, if you will. And when they did came back up, and they didn't have, a lot of people still using, of course, even though still like they didn't have a certain feature on there that allowed us to be able to download the episodes and shit. So yeah, so we had to wait. We all had to wait a little bit for that. And so yeah, and I was kind of pissed myself, but yeah, I was kind of glad when it finally got up there. It didn't take long for them to add that feature back on there. So yeah, so shout out to them. I'm not gonna say who or what, but holler at me in private or email for that. But yeah, for all that info. Um, even though they advertising, on these ads and shit on YouTube now, they're like, fuck it, So I guess they somehow was able to get bold with it. And oh, there we go. Now my shit pops up. Boom. Okay. Yeah. So, but hey y'all, there's so much shit coming out, man. Woo! What a hell of a time to be live, man. Man, this is gonna be awesome. So I've been waiting for this to come into, to be animated. This Baki art. Man, man, there's just so much shit, man. So much other anime coming back out. Re Zero, which is our dude, the protagonist of that show, whom has been like transported into another world, but he he has to utilize his ability of reincarnating because like every time he dies, he remembers the pain like of each time when he dies, but he goes through this little puzzle he has, going on, of where he's trying to figure out a way of how to stop from getting killed or dying or whatever, and and he goes on this journey where he got to utilize his his friends that he comes along with, that he ends up traveling with during the story. But yeah, y'all know the story, yeah, and there's this like witch involved or whatever, uh, that has this like hold up over him, over his heart, and if he starts like speaking or whatever, like in relation to the was it the source of that power, or was it, or telling them, or telling someone, the source of the secret of what happened to him, whatever it was, yeah, and and so it'll grip his heart and shit, man, and I'm like, oh damn, it's just a really like awesome, gripping, effed up sci-fi type of anime. I forgot the type of name they call it. I think it's Sekai anime type of anime. Yeah. So there we go. Yeah, man. And woo. And so then Jason Momoa, I don't know if you've seen him, man, but not Jason Momoa, but The Rock with his little live anime movie adaptation he's playing. He playing as the character he voiced, within the animation, which is that the little animation called what, Moa, whatever the hell it is, and this motherfucker got on a wig. He's looking silly as hell. I'm like, Rock boy, you looking crazy as a motherfucker with that wig on. Ah, shit me, boy. Oh man. Oh man. But yeah, y'all, we gotta get into it, man. Oh, dude. Just man, there's just so much other shit, man. Yeah, but let's go into this, y'all, because for most part, most of these, exception of one, I haven't seen before. So yeah, we will be watching it together. You'll be watching it together with me for my first time. So yeah. All right. So yeah, here we go, man. Let's dive into it, man. Let's chop it up about this shit. Let's go. Oh yeah, hit the like on the way in, hit the like on the way in.
When I was at Cleveland Fan Expo, one of you guys introduced me to this comic called The Antagonist, and this comic is stupidly good. And outside of like short form video, when I was at Cleveland Fan Expo, one of you guys introduced me to this comic called The Antagonist, and this comic is stupidly good. And outside of like short form videos that I've seen across social media, no one's talking about this. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, right? This is not even conjecture. This is a comic they could make a show out of. Now, it is 7 issues long. I'm gonna give you guys the first issue. I did hit up Godhood Comics on Twitter, apparently they were already following me, and asked them whether or not it'd be a problem if I covered the rest. So we'll figure out what they say. But if I'm being honest with you guys, even though we're only covering the first issue, I think you guys are going to be begging me to cover the rest by the time we get done, because this comic is phenomenal. So what this does is it opens up in Detroit, Michigan, right? And there's this whole meeting that's going on here. And any of you guys who have ever existed in any capacity in a workplace like this, you guys know exactly what's coming down the pipe. So what ends up happening, right, is this meeting kicks off and it says, first, I would like to take this time to thank you all for being here. It's been our most profitable quarter and we have all been extremely busy. It's a very important day for us all. And here at Radiant Realty Detroit, we pride ourselves on in-house promotion and development. Each of you have been responsible for the success of this fiscal year, and as you know, the board is looking for a new partner to join our ranks, someone with the grit and ingenuity to take this firm to the next level. Kevin has only been with us for 2 years, and already he's generated millions in marketing, bringing in new and innovative technologies to help us dominate the market. And the lovely Tanya Eval, our highest grossing agent this year, bringing in a whopping $10.5 million in commercial closings. Tanya's aggressive and determined nature has pushed us to close deals we've never imagined possible. My point is that this firm needs exceptional people to maintain our dominance over the Detroit market. Now, we have thought long and hard about this. It was a tough decision, but ultimately we needed to do what was best for the entire agency. No matter the outcome, you are all Radiant Realty family. So, let's not beat around the bush any longer. It's my honor, and backed by the full weight of the board of directors, to announce that our new partner here at Radiant Detroit is Kevin Coleman. And at that point, Tanya is pissed. She's incensed. But she has a valid reason to be. Because while Kevin's kind of making the rounds, right, and everybody's giving the applause and everybody's celebrating and all that kind of stuff, Tanya just starts walking out, right? She literally just goes to leave. Now, I will also specify here, there is some harsh language in this comic. So, I mean, like, we will bleep it out, but contextually, you'll be able to figure out what they're saying, right? Because at that point, one of the guys says, what did I tell you, right? The kid's got what it takes. And Kevin just kind of steps up, right? Yeah, and naturally, it's gonna be my first order of business to fire all you who bet against me. But when he notices Tanya leaving, he goes to approach her, and he's like, Tanya, what's up, right? Are we good? No hard feelings? I mean, I know you worked hard, but so did I. And she says, I'm sure you did, Kevin. We're good. but I guess the better man won. When she goes to shake his hand, he says, well, all right, I'm so glad you did. This guy responds with the worst possible thing he could have said. He says, I've been noticing your lack of detail on a few things around here, and given my new position, I think I can finally guide you in the right direction. And she starts gripping his hand, right, with just this grip that starts crushing it. And he's like, that's one hell of a grip you've got there, Tanya. And she just says, I know, and fires her heat vision off and blows this guy's head apart, only for us to find out it's just kind of an illusion, right, a dream, like what she's imagining doing. But Tanya's got powers. Right? Here's the cool thing. Once we realize that's not actually what's going on, she just says like, oh God, Kevin, I guess sometimes I don't know my own strength, and congratulations on the promotion. Now here's where the legitimate beef starts to come into play, because it happens in two parts. There's this conversation here, and then there's what happens later, which is really the meat and potatoes behind this. So what ends up going on is she goes storming into her boss's office, right? John Murray, and she says, 15 years, Murray, I have given this company 15 years of my life without one promotion. Now, John responds and he says, Tanya, calm down. No need to go all Medea on me. Let's talk. Now, at the time that I was reading this comic, I was talking to Mariah and I was like, Mariah, you have to hear this. Like literally, so I start reading it to her and she's just like, wow. But she's like, that happens, right? But he says, you know, it was the board's decision. Besides, next to me, you're the highest paid person at the firm. The promotion would only take away your commissions. But at the end of the day, she says, while at the same time, finally giving me the goddamn authority to oversee any projects I see fit. A month ago, you promised that I would be partner. And that's where he responds, right? Jesus, Tanya, have you seen the board? They're a bunch of rich white Republicans who hate women and fear black people. I backed you, but it was out of my hands. The kid could be your way in. He can change things, offer a new perspective with the board, which is an interesting way of looking at it, because the question to pose here is that, is it really giving Kevin the promotion because that's the way in order to affect change, or we're just giving her the promotion be the way to affect change? The latter is the obvious choice here, but again, there's a lot more going on than what initially seems to be happening, because what ends up going on is she responds and she says the kid has only been here for 2 years, one of which where he served as my intern. He's a idiot. And so the response to John, like, what the hell do you want from me of all? I gave them my recommendation and they went another direction. Big deal. It happens all the time. Maybe if you were a little more approachable around here. The way in which this is handled and the way in which she talks, I don't know how I feel about it, and I'll explain what I mean here in a second. But she responds, right, excuse me, right, don't you dare try and pull the angry black woman card on me. Why is it that I'm not allowed to be introverted at work? Why is it only a black woman's job to contribute to the culture of this office by talking to everyone cheerfully every day? You and the other men curse each other out all day, but I'm reprimanded as being unpleasant? Here's the reason why I have an issue with that. When she's this angry and she's saying things like, but I'm reprimanded as being unpleasant, it doesn't sound the way humans would organically talk in moments of passion. It almost kind of sounds like an Aaron Sorkin script. If you ever saw The West Wing, or you ever saw something like The Newsroom, right? It's not the way people normally talk. But the point is, she continues on, I've worked my ass off for you and this company. You will never know what I had to sacrifice. Now, that is a clue to the bigger picture that's going on here, because what he does is he says, don't be so dramatic. First thing tomorrow morning, I'll call an emergency board meeting. I will try my best to see if they'll reconsider and honor my recommendation to make you partner. And she asks, right, what about Kevin Coleman? And that's where he just says, he's young, he'll get over it. Now take the rest of the day off and try and get some rest before Calvin and the kids get home, because here's where the waters get murky. So what ends up happening is Tanya goes to basically the lunchroom, right, in the building, and a couple of girls walk in having a conversation with each other. And one of the girls says, Nicole from accounting said that Allison over at JH Financials on the 40th floor was banging the janitor and the CEO. Now that's what I call from top to bottom. And she says, word travels fast around here, but it just so happens that I'm faster. And so one of the girls asks, right, hey, doesn't she work with you at Radiant? Because we're talking about a singular building occupied by multiple companies. And that's where the blonde-headed girl says she totally does, and I don't want the poor thing to hear you. And so basically they're gossiping, right? So the dark-haired girl says, really, unless she's one of those super-powered freaks and has super hearing, I think we're okay. And so the blonde girl says, I feel so sorry for her. And the dark-haired girl asks why, and the blonde-haired girl says, but as Mr. Murray's secretary, I fax all his paperwork and all of his important documents. I overheard him on the phone the other day saying she was better off not being promoted, but having the illusion that she could be, that he said he needed her right where she was to do his job more efficiently. And that's where one of the girls is like, that is And so when Tanya overhears this, she's incensed. She smashes the coffee pot. And then at that point, she goes and confronts John. And here's where things go nuts, because when this guy's walking out to his car at the end of the workday, Tanya comes running up on him and just shouts, Murray, and scares the crap out of this guy, which makes perfect sense. I mean, somebody comes running up on you in a parking garage and you're an old man, you're gonna get a little freaked out. I mean, I'm 42 and I'm gonna get a little freaked out. But he turns around and realizes who it is, right? And he says, Tanya, you scared the shit out of me. What are you still doing here? I thought you left ages ago. And she says, you lied to me, Murray. And he asks, right, like, what is this all about, right? What are you going on about now? And she says, you never sent in my recommendation, and I want to hear you say it. I want to hear you say that you lied. And he says, I thought that we were past this, right? He tries to dismiss it, right? I told you I backed you. And she says, don't fucking lie to me. Tell me. I want to hear you say it. And his response, fine. And this is where you find out what's really going on here. She's been screwed over, right? He says, you want the truth? Here it is. You're good, Tanya. You're really good, but you do not have what it takes to be a member of the board. But under me, look at all you've accomplished. You belong right where you are, right by my side. And she says, more like under your heel, all these years of saving your I should have known. The millions that you funneled. So he's been embezzling money from the company. Tax evasion to offshore accounts. I've covered you for my entire career. And he tells her, I did what was best for you. Your ambitions were too high. How far did you really think you could go without me? You should have been thanking me. I've made you millions. Your house, your car, those expensive pantsuits. For crying out loud, your husband works in education. All you have is because of me. And she says, I have to hand it to you, Murray. You played me. I don't blame you, though. It's human nature to try and get over each other, to on everyone else on our way to the top. And at that point, she starts levitating, right? And she says, trust me, I've spent my whole life trying to prove that point, trying to prove that deep down, we're all just as bad as you. You did make one grave mistake, though. You didn't know who you were with. And she incinerates his car with her heat vision. At that point, the guy starts begging for his life, right? And she says, I told you, you had no idea what I've sacrificed, no idea what I used to be. And she says, do not leave now, Murray. I'm just getting warmed up. And at that point, this guy, being as terrified as he is, she incinerates him on the spot with her heat vision. She kills her boss. Right? And that's a crazy thing, because then we get this amazing monologue, right, which brings in a lot of moral political philosophy here, right, where it says, don't you dare judge me. I can feel it now. I cannot read minds like my husband, but I know what you're thinking, because we'll talk about her husband here in a second. She says, she just killed her boss. This must be the villain of the story. She must be evil. But Webster's dictionary defines evil as profoundly immoral and wicked. I think it's more of a relative term. Tyrannical systems are often created by people who believe that they have the highest and noblest intentions. Totalitarian countries, theocratic dictatorships, and abusive cults are all typically founded and promoted by those who are convinced that their actions will benefit humankind. Here is a pertinent adage about self-deception and fallibility. It's who we all are, sinners, playing saint, monsters, acting as men. This is where the political philosophy comes into play, right? Intentionalism versus consequentialism, right? Deontological ethics, and act as moral if and only if everybody can do it. How do you determine what's right and wrong? How do you determine what's fair and not fair? Because that's what she's kind of pointing out here. She says, Murray was a pig. He'd been married for 30 years, and yet every Friday after work, he would take thousands of dollars from the firm, have his secretary cook the books, and head down to the Motel 6, where he'd find the youngest woman of the night that he could find. His wife would not see him again until Sunday morning at church. Was Mr. Murray evil? Does my evil outrank his? Have you ever thought about killing the man who cut you off in traffic, or hurting your annoying neighbor or overzealous ex? I have found that our worst impulses innately make us evil. Even if you don't act on those thoughts, it's human nature to vile and to think you're not. Why is it not evil when an American soldier raids a village in Palestine and murders women and children? Why is the country divided on whether it's evil for a trained cop to shoot an unarmed black citizen? I learned early on that the line between good and evil was damn near invisible. My father died before I was born, and my stepfather used my mother and me as retribution targets for his failures. During one of his drunken tirades, my mother killed him to save me. She was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. That's when I knew just how broad the term evil was and how ineffective the word good had become. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, but after today, I don't think intentions matter. And so at this point, she has to contend about what she's going to do when her husband finds out. Because at that point, we switch over to him. And honestly, her husband's really, really cool. So at that point, you switch over to Jackson Heights High School. And I should probably qualify that statement. Her husband's cool, but insofar as he's like a blend between like Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince and a guy who's basically just a stern dick. And you'll see what I mean as you get through this. Because Calvin is the principal of Jackson Heights High School. And that's where he's told by his assistant, your daughter is here as you requested. And he says, thank you, Miss Gray, send her in. And one of the things Miss Gray says, right? Like, my feet are killing me, but man, looking at Calvin makes it all worth it. So she's got the hots for this man. But at that point, when his daughter walks in, he closes the door with his telekinesis. Not only that, he's also got telepathy because he mentally tells her to sit down. And so at that point he says, have we not discussed the importance of staying out of trouble and keeping a low profile? And she asks, right, can you please stay out of my head and talk to me like normal? I hate it when you do that, right? And she says, and maybe don't stand there like some Middle Eastern dictator. The whole school mocks you for it, right? And so that's when he just respects her wishes and starts talking to her, right, as a normal person. And he says, unlike you, I am less inclined to care about what a bunch of pathetic teenagers think. This is the third time you've come to my office this month. Explain yourself, Aaliyah, because he holds out a piece of paper and says, look at this infraction. Use of vulgar language, skipping class, disrespect. What is going on? So right off the bat, we can tell he's a very stern man, right? He's a very by-the-book man. I doubt this dude has ever smiled once in his entire life. I mean, obviously this is sarcasm, but still, right? She asks, all of a sudden, you can't read minds, which is kind of weird because she just asked him not to. The life of teenagers, right? Teenagers will ask you not to do something and then get mad at you for not doing it. But that's the thing. She says, it's not easy being the principal's daughter. On one end, teachers have higher expectations for me. And on the other end, students think I'm getting some kind of special treatment. Not to mention you walking around campus like some prison warden. And that's where he tells her, right? I know it's been tough. I remember what it was like having your grandmother as my teacher. And where initially she says, then you of all people should understand what I'm going through, his response, I know you're growing up and life is not going to get any easier, especially not for you, a young black woman with superpowers. It's almost like you were set up to fail, baby girl, and that's what the world wants for people like us. We do not have the luxury of second chances. It's unfortunate, but it's surreal. You need to find another way to deal with your problems instead of acting out. And that's where she's like, is that it? Right? That's all you have to say? I'm off the hook, no punishment or any more of that old black rhetoric? And he just says, don't be ridiculous. We will finish this conversation at home. For now, you will go to class and be on your best behavior. And he says, when the bell rings at the end of the day, you will get on the bus and you will go straight home. And she's like, no, right? Like there's a game tonight. It's the first game of the season, right? Which, I mean, let's all remember what it was like being a teenager. It's the end of the world. That's what it feels like when you're that young. So for her, it's the biggest thing because this is her entire world. It means something to her. And that's why the punishment is so harsh because her father says that is a game that you will not be attending. Behavioral policy and standards apply to all of Jackson Heights athletes, including you. And that's where she says, that's not fair, right? I worked hard to make the cheerleading team, and a lot of the other girls don't even think I deserve to be there. And he says, you need to get out of the habit of comparing yourself to these people. You are different and you are better. There'll be more games, so go back to class. And so he tells her, stop groveling. You should never have to prove anything. You have done this to yourself. And so that's where she ends up like storming out, right? And he's like, hey, at least you're not getting any special treatment. And so that's where you switch over to Tanya when she gets back home. And she just says, I don't know what I was thinking. Before tonight, I hadn't killed a man in 20 years. And she says, I don't know what I'm going to tell my husband. And so as soon as she walks to the door, a laser beam comes flying through and almost hits her in the head. And that's when you meet her youngest son, right? He's like, look, so I've developed a new pulsar cannon to basically take care of the ant problem that we have in the backyard. It attracts potential proton molecules and converts them into kinetic ones. I thought the safety was on the gun. My bad. But the funny thing is he realizes she's not screaming at him. And so at that point he flees. He's like, we gotta get out of here, right? Like, mom's not yelling at me. But it's also a funny thing because once she gets in and her husband's, kind of winding down for the night and all that kind of good stuff, she tells him we need to talk. And then Aaliyah walks in saying the worst possible thing she could. She's on the phone with her friend talking about how fine another guy is. Now, here's the thing. When you are a dad, and I know this firsthand because my dad and my sister went through it, when you're a dad and your daughter comes walking in when she's at that age, 15, 16, 17 years old, talking about how cute boys are, oh, it's got to be some kind of a worst case scenario. Dads never want to have to deal with that, right? Dads never want to have to contend with that. I am actually terrified of that myself. But the point is, she's not supposed to be on the phone. She doesn't know it, but she's not supposed to be. And in fact, that's what her dad says. You're grounded. Get off the phone and leave it on the counter. And that's where she's just like, that's not part of my punishment, right? We never agreed to that. And her father's just kind of like, yeah, I know, but it should have been, right? So you don't get to act out and then go about your day as normal. Now, Aaliyah looks to her mom. She looks at Tanya for some kind of help. And Tanya's just like, no, right? Don't look at me. I just live here. Listen to your father, Aaliyah. By now, you should know the deal. So she takes her phone, slams it down on the countertop, and her dad's like, we can make it 2 weeks, smart ass. Right? It's amazing. I will say, this is one of the things I love about this comic, right? One of the things I love about the antagonist is the interpersonal dynamics, how they relate to one another, right? This is one of the things that defines comics in this way. Small little moments between characters and how they relate to each other. And so where Calvin fills Tanya in on everything that had gone on with Aaliyah getting into trouble, acting out, different things like that, Tanya initially goes to tell him, we need to talk about something that I've done at work, but she asks about where their son Trey is. And that's where Calvin's like, you mean the only one of our children with some damn sense? And he said that one of his college classes ran late, and so I'm sure he's buried deep in some book at the library, which he's not. Their son Trey is part of a fight club, which is kind of amazing, to be honest, because he's got powers too. Because what goes on here is that in this whole thing, and this is one of those weird, wonky conversational topics that I'm talking about, is that one of the guys says, right, like they say that you can't be hurt. Come, let us see. That's a little weird, right? I mean, you would expect him to say something like, let's find out, right? Whatever the case is. So small little moments like that, right? Kind of throw me out a little bit, but it doesn't really make any difference. This guy cold cocks Trey and knocks him out in like 2 hits, but with this giant welt on his face, it starts to heal. And that's one of his powers, right? He has the ability to heal. And that's where the statements made by Tanya, right? Kind of a monologue here. For years, my husband and I have tried to keep our children safe from the world and safe from us. Yes, there's a misspelling there. Who cares? And she says, and for a time, we did just that. And that's where Trey stands back up and is like, my turn. And just clocks this guy. And she says, we taught them to be normal, to hide their abilities, and to blend in. And so that's when you switch over to the aftermath of Murray being killed. And here's the crazy thing. These 2 detectives who show up, this is clearly Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt from Seven. There's no way it's not. I mean, look at
I
this
believe
picture of
it.
Brad Pitt from Seven.
I
And look at
believe
this
it.
picture of Morgan Freeman from Seven. Tell me that's not who these guys are modeled on. You'll never convince me otherwise. 100% they are. And we're told these guys are detectives Spooner and Carden. And we're actually told that here in a second. But these guys are looking on, right? And it's like, man, this guy didn't even know the gas cap was on, right? Didn't think it would be his last smoke. So clearly what Tanya's done here, she made it look like an accident, right? But that's where the feds show up here, because they're told this is Agent Sheila English of the FBI. She'll be taking over this crime scene. Make sure she gets what she needs. But then Agent Sheila is told, these are Detectives Spooner and Cardin. They might not look like it, but they are very good at what they do. And so that's where the question's asked, right? Like, why in the world would the feds have any interest in a car accident like this? And that's what they're told, because this was not an accident. It was something else. Someone did this. And that's where Tanya picks back up and says, but tonight showed me that the reality is no matter how hard we try, we are far from normal. And in trying to protect our kids, I may have just put them at risk. I may have just ruined our lives. God help me, and God help us all. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this to an end. I told you guys, this is the first issue. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.
Now, as I'm gonna say with that one, yep, I'm like, damn, that's awesome. So, yeah, I need to keep track with that company, man. With that comic book company right there. Yes, sir. Because I'm basically believe they're black. Whoever made this indie comic, they got to be black. So, yep, which is awesome. Yep, we got black characters in there. Yep, and I'm definitely relating so much so to where I'll say this. I'm like, yeah. So y'all made the black woman in there like she got this evil side in her. Yeah, yeah. So y'all show the typical unhinged black chick and shit. Yeah, she's talking about like, oh, don't uh stereotype me with that whole angry black woman thing. I'm like, well, you just displayed it, you crazy ass heifer. I'm like, damn, bitch. I'm like, you couldn't just, what I mean? You could just take this one, what I mean, as a win, for you, bitch. Hell, where you was mentioned, what I mean, your accolades and all was mentioned, bitch. What I mean, boom, in the beginning before it was announced that dude was going to be a becoming partner. But hey, even though she had a legitimate reason, I had to be a little pissed off. But then, but then again, as we men have learned to know, to do is okay, is bounce back from that, okay, by either working a way to finding another company or continue on just, putting in good work. Find a way to network with another company who will be, treating you better. Find someone from another company you can network with, boom, and then within that company you can rise up better than you have been with this company, than you have with this company that you have been with for years. So yeah, let's, what I mean? So there's like no control, none of that shit, no impulse control, none of that shit. And it was getting talking about all the good and evil shit. I'm like, no, bitch, yeah, that's evil. Lines may be blurred with some minds, but when you follow with the ways of it, how God said for us to follow and follow Him and how we should live and operate here in this world amongst each other. Yeah, that you'll see that's the way, that's the naturalist way you can get. So like that whole cops killing innocent black people. Yeah, that's evil. In their eyes, they may not look at it as evil, but that's evil. The motherfuckers are evil. And that shit that she did by just totally roasting, like her, literally roasting her boss because her boss, damn it, didn't promote her the way she want to be promoted. You showed that typical angry black woman stereotype. Yep. So thank you again, motherfuckers who created this comic for showing the why. Yes, it's not good to to have a black woman as a wife. And she didn't even get it out of him yet, but I believe, and hopefully, Brother Rock continues on, covering this series, because in the next chapter we should see where, uh, or for the next part, we should see where her husband, his reaction to what she has done. You know, it should be around the lines of, "Hey, he is a stoic, masculine man. It is that he is," and shout out to the father. Yeah, we should be giving salute to the father. Damn it. And Rob, no, he won't be no dick. Stop looking at it through that liberal lens, bro. Stop it, man. He was a stern, damn it. No, he's on number righteous shit right there. Yep. A mind reader, stoic, righteous, take no bullshit. Damn it, on time, punctual, will fuck you up, black man. And father. So no, he was right. He was right for what he did, damn it. Getting on his daughter, damn it, hell, to try to help her, damn it, to by giving her the structure, wisdom, and guidance, damn it, to help her, to steer her, damn it, towards the right path of being the proper lady that she should be, instead of allowing her to go about and becoming a whole wild hyena. Which is how that's how she walked in when she walked into her dad's office, who was the principal. Walked in like she was, like she Miss Hot then. Girl, straighten your damn self up now. Fuck wrong with you? He's like, yeah, take that shit off. No phone. Nah, nah. He's like, you ain't gonna be prowling around them and like you, hell, bitch, like hell, like you ain't received no damn consequences, bitch, for your actions. Little hip and no, hell no. Phone that, the phone was a part of the agreement. I don't give a damn. Well, it is now. Shit, take the boy. Yeah, I love it. I love it. And then and seeing how her the husband, how that wife and husband dynamic right there, how they basically came together, and showing their little lovey-dovey side and shit. But I'm like, well, let's see how that's gonna turn out when he finds out that his wife is nuttier than is a little nut. She's a little nuttier than squirrel shit. You has to be damn it to do that shit. Instead of just being like, hey, it is what it is, and this shit. And if it's a position where where she's gonna be like leading like other people too, no, no, it's already in God's word. No, you're not meant to lead, man. No, so respect your position. And hell, she could have rose up in more favor if she didn't kill the motherfucker. Playing her part, boom, and then hey, finding another company to network with on the slick. There's like no objective thinking. It's just all wild, erratic emotions. Just because that was set her off was what she heard about from her coworkers that came into to that little lunchroom and shit. And she heard what they said, and she smashed the damn little coffee thing, and she went out there and and chased that motherfucker down and confronted him. I'm like, oh my god, bitch, yeah. That's your husband. I'll be like, bitch. I mean, yeah, he has to know them and who she is, because the bitch said that she ain't killed a man in 20 years. So I mean, that's basically uh, before she had a kid, their daughter, before they had their daughter and their son. So yeah, so father there, he's like on no play no games type of shit. I would not call on a father like that a dick. What the hell? Like you got to stop that, bro. Like we want more of that, man. Rob. We should want more type. We should want that type of like masculine frame being displayed within comics, within all of media right now. You know how desperate of a need that this country has for that image, bro. And you know how saturated. I know your ass know, damn it, how saturated it is within this within media right now of the image of the man slash the father being on like some super ass weak bullshit. You know, just so fucking tender and super soft type of shit. Oh my god. I'm seeing fucking male characters in movies and shows saying, where's 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 Jill? Somebody get Jill. She's powerful enough to stop this guy, to stop this monster. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here, man. But nah, and the son though, shit, hey, yeah, he's getting on his masculine shit right there. Yeah, hey man, glorious masculine shit right there. You know, participating in a fight club on a slick without his parents knowing, which should be wrong. Hey man, you know, in a traditional type of household, and the father as he should. Hey man, you know what I mean. Bring forth some. He should bring forth some stipulations upon him, some disciplines for doing so. But hey, and he heals too. He has a healing power, so he got back up, damn it, and start beating that big ass white dude. Yeah, yeah. I'm glad to see where it shows that his son is not where the principal's son is not weak either. He ain't bitch made and shit. Hopefully, you know, so far, you know, it doesn't show where he's like involved in any kind of now that he's a straight male. But yeah, so man, yeah, but that was a good one, man. So and that's called the antagonist. Okay, so that's the name of that comic, the indie comic, the antagonist. All right. So yeah, shout out to Rob, man, for covering that, man, the indie comic. So now you up in but hey, but dig it, brother Rob. I would say this though, brother Rob, for you. Hey, dig it, bro. Hey, everybody. So because he did that, right? He put that video out. So everybody can shut the fuck up when it comes to Rob. And you know, like Rob isn't being, you know, too fearful. He's too afraid or whatever to cover such comics or whatever, or to care to take any interest in such comics, you know, and covering such comics, you know. Yeah, he did just that. Blurred. So everybody can just shut the hell up. And it's highly likely, you know, where he, you know, may continue on to, you know, to cover the shit. As long as you go over there to Rob Comics Explain, like the video, like the hell out of the video, the indie comic, damn it, where we got some awesome black characters in there. You know what I mean? With their own little dynamics. Go over there, you know, hey, support it some way, cover it, like it, share it, and hell, go to buy the comics. I mean, go back for the name, but yeah, shit, that's something that's, yeah, definitely, you know, look like something definitely worth investing in. So yeah, so do that. So yeah, and shout out to Rob Comics Explain. All right, and probably got a couple of some more videos from Brother Rob. A couple of videos. Yes, I got some stuff, man. I want to cover. Wanted to cover that with you guys, and yeah, I got some other stuff too. So salute to you guys for coming through. Thank you. Yes, and including like, yeah, hit the like for over here, please. Thank you, and share. Yeah, because after this, we will be having movie night immediately because I have all the episodes. Yeah, we'll be going through the whole season of this new arc of Baki, the Invincible Samurai, Baki Do. All right, here we go to our next video.
What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are here with Ultimate Endgame issue number 3. And this is one of those comics where, depending on where you stand, either you're fine with what happens, or you are pissed, or you're kind of caught off. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are here with Ultimate Endgame issue number 3. And this is one of those comics where, depending on where you stand, either you're fine with what happens, or you are pissed, or you're kind of caught off guard. But the reality is that this is one of those very divisive comics that Marvel's released in recent years. There are a couple phrases here on the first page that I've blocked out, because to reveal those is to spoil what happens. But what this does is this picks up in the aftermath of Tony Stark essentially having to destroy his father. The reason being because Tony's in possession of an Immortus engine. Why does that matter? Immortus engines are time travel devices. It's one of the things that we learned at the very beginning of all this when Hickman first kicked off the new Ultimate Universe, as short-lived as it seems to be. Those who have an Immortus engine can control all of space and time. The Maker is here in the city. As a quick little bit of a refresher here, right? One of the things to keep in mind is that at the end of Ultimate Invasion, going into Ultimate Universe number 1, the Maker and Tony Stark's father were locked away inside the city. It was supposed to open after 2 years. That 2-year window has passed. The Ultimates have entered into the city. Now they're essentially stuck here. But because time passes differently inside the city itself, at this point in time, Howard Stark and the Maker have basically been fighting for eons. And while a kind of stalemate had been secured, the reality is that the entrance of the Ultimates introduced an unstable element. In effect, they provided a means for the Maker to be able to locate Howard Stark, who for the most part has just kind of stayed hidden. More so than that, the city is the Maker and the Maker is the city. They're all kind of one and the same. And that's what's going on with all these henchmen, right, that the Ultimates are fighting. They're basically facsimiles of the Maker himself. He literally turned himself into a kind of gas form that in turn imbued everybody, which is part of the reason why everyone in the city, or most everybody in the city, is part of the Maker. But with Tony Stark having to destroy his father in order to keep himself from dying with the loss of the Immortus engine, now he's just kind of in a fugue state, right? He's just sitting there dealing with everything that's going on. And that's why America Chavez says, Tony, get your head together. We're all going to die. And the response of Venom, right, we're all going to die anyway. And Peter's just like, I hate when I'm right. But the point is, you switch over to Richard Parker, right, the son of Spider-Man, talking to Mary Jane Watson. And she's just kind of screaming at him, right? You know, sorry might have worked the first time that you snuck out, Richard, but not the 5th. And that's where he tells her, I made it this time. But there was a pack of velociraptors that basically tried to attack me, and ultimately that's the reason why I'm late, right? And that's where she just says, you could have died out there. You are not in the city anymore. And that's where Richard just says, I should be in the city. I should be with Dad. Now, this is one of the things to keep in mind about what's been happening, right? We long saw a while ago in the Ultimate Spider-Man comic that they now reside in the Savage Land. It's essentially a base of operations, but the Savage Land, instead of existing down in Antarctica like it does in the main Marvel Universe, that instead it exists under the city of New York, but it is still a safe haven from everything going on the surface. And we'll talk about that here in a second, because Mary Jane just kind of keeps screaming at her son a little bit, right? Like, you're just a child, right? You are my child, and I want you where it's safe. And that's kind of the funny thing, is Richard responds kind of the way that you would expect him to, given everything that's going on, right? Where he says, so we're just supposed to stay here and hide, right? All that crap about responsibility, community, integrity, all that was crap, wasn't it? And she just tells him language, but that's a fair argument to make, right? You can't really, on one hand, instill in Richard Parker the idea that you have to learn to care about others more than you care about yourself, and then at the same time say, the smart thing for us to do is hide. On a moral level, it doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense, but at the same time, Richard's young. The reality here is that when you are a child, right, your prefrontal cortex doesn't really develop, or at least fully, until you're like 25. So recklessness and impulse control and all that kind of stuff, that's still very much a part of your life. I simply just say that to say, for someone like Richard going up there onto the surface and getting involved in the conflict, he would likely get himself killed. And that's the one thing that Mary Jane is so concerned about here. And that's why she tells him, there are other ways to fight, right? I have spent the last 3 months verifying and summarizing the thousands of pages of AltNet documents for the public. That matters too. Why don't you help us? Now, that's an important thing, right? Because in that moment, J. Jonah Jameson says, our stories are reaching millions of people. And Uncle Ben tells him, you will have a bigger impact here than anywhere out there. And that's an accurate statement to make, right? The reality here is that when you're trying to change the world, it's much easier to reach as many people as humanly possible with a positive message on how the world can be changed. People usually put up defenses, right, when you try to use some kind of a negative message. And so one of the things to notice here is that in all the efforts that have been happening, really going all the way back to the Ultimate Spider-Man comic, as well as during Ultimate Endgame, is that what's been happening is J. Jonah Jameson and Ben Parker have had their own newspaper, and they're trying to speak truth to power, and they're successfully doing it. And the reason why is because while the Illuminati are a very powerful force and have been manipulating the world behind the scenes, the reality here is that a lot of people are very dissatisfied with the lives they lead. All they've been waiting for is some catalyst, some kind of a spark to ignite that sets it all off. And that's what the Ultimates pulled off, right? When they basically created UltNet and they told anybody who wants to be a part of it, you can be an Ultimate too. It gave people an ideology to rally around, and that allowed people to unify in a way that hasn't quite been done. And that's why when Richard asked, right, how are you guys even still online? Why hasn't the paper been taken down yet? And in fact, J. Jonah Jameson responds to this. He says, to be honest, we've wondered that ourselves, right? With their technology and their tactics, they should have come for us long before the article first went live. And that's when Ben just says, it's like we've had a guardian angel watching over us. And that's when Vision appears. Now, Vision has been part of the Ultimates for quite some time. Of course, Vision is a woman in the Ultimate Universe, but it's cool because honestly, Vision uses her powers in a really interesting way, right? She kind of chimes in and says, that's one way to look at it. Now, the funny thing is, no one really knew that she was active in doing this, right? That's why Uncle Ben and these guys are kind of caught off guard. And she just says, I am the Vision of the Ultimates. I have long admired your journalism and have been shielding you from hand censors. I have quite a lot of influence on the internet. And so Jameson, of course, the most trustworthy person you could possibly imagine, is just like, so what do you want? A thank you? And she says, no, right? I want to update you. The paper reaches many who have not yet joined our network. An informed public is vital to our project. That's an accurate statement, right? Those in power, the one thing they fear the most is a united public and an informed public, because an informed public knows what right decisions to make, and they know whether or not they're being lied to, if the wool's being pulled over their eyes. And that is what's been happening in the Ultimate Universe. It's also what's been happening in the real world, but that's what's been happening in the Ultimate Universe here. It is those in power lying to people without power, hoping that they just either never open their eyes to see what's going on, they write off those individuals who are reporting what's going on as conspiracy theorists, or they're too afraid to act. And that's where Ben says, I don't care what you've done for us. The paper is not some propaganda outlet. We do not print anything. We do not corroborate ourselves. But that's the kicker, is Vision says, of course, Mr. Parker, because it's one thing to simply just be told something by someone. It's another to be able to follow up and to verify that it's true. It's like what Mysterio said in Spider-Man, right? These days, people need to believe, and they will believe anything. And that's what Vision is pointing at, and that's what Ben Parker is pointing at. Give us proof. And so that's why Vision says, following DaCosta and the Society's defeat and withdrawal from the Northern American Union, our focus has been on the coast. Fantastic Force units have been systematically dismantling the Children of the Light in the West, which, by the way, I still love the idea that the Fantastic Force is here. Essentially, Doctor Doom's Fantastic Four, right? Created in the Ultimate Comics. Of course, one of the things
Fantastic Force.
Fantastic Force is a throwback to the old Marvel Comics that had Franklin Richards as a member of his own superhero team. But Vision continues on. While Ultimates, Shen Qi and Danny Rand have been fomenting a non-violent peasant uprising in heaven, dividing the Incredible Hulk's forces and attention. Outside the Union, Ultimate's membership is smaller, the Council's hold is stronger, though local unaffiliated actors have had some success in some territories. Now, that's one of the other parts of this new Ultimate Universe, and in a lot of ways, it's one of the things that fans were kind of frustrated about. There was some world building, but the world building wasn't really done in the way you would expect it to be done in the main Marvel Universe, right? Here's cosmic entities, here's various alien races that exist out there, and all that kind of stuff. You kind of got that to a degree, but the world building was very, very limited, and it was only really done as far as what needed to be done to progress the story. And so while we did learn about things like Eurasia, and we learned that the X-Men X-Men don't really exist in the traditional sense that Xavier's long since gone. Jean Grey's brain was being used by Colossus, his sister Magic, and Omega Red before Wolverine killed him in order to basically control Wolverine when he was the Winter Soldier and other people who operate under Department X. There wasn't really a whole lot of other exploration out there. Now, truth to tell, when we're talking about world building within Marvel Comics, we're also talking about world building that's been happening since the introduction of the Fantastic Four. So I don't quite know you could achieve the same level of world building that's been happening over 60, 70 years within the span of like a 2-year window. But you guys understand what I'm talking about, right? Like there's a difference between building a world out of necessity based on the story and building a world because you can. But that's where Vision continues on, right? And Hino Kuni, a youth movement of so-called mutants, has been troubling Emperor Sunfire. And that's when we get in to the Ultimate X-Men, which honestly, we have not covered in quite some time. Now, these two people that we're seeing here are May and Cannon. And here's the funny thing. Cannon is essentially Quanon, right? Psylocke from the new Ultimate Universe. May is actually a whole new character for the Ultimate Universe. She's dope. She actually has kind of an obsession for like Eric Killmonger in Storm, which we'll talk about here in a second. But one of the big things that they had been doing was basically leading what measure of a revolt they could against Sunfire within Japan. Now, initially their story started off relatively innocuous, kind of learning about themselves, what they were capable of, and all that kind of cool stuff. But as the story progressed, it became a lot more serious. I will say, Ultimate X-Men from Peach Momoko has been nothing short of one of the greatest X-Men runs in the history of Marvel, which makes me kind of ashamed to say because we have not covered it. And I feel like we've been doing a huge disservice to that comic by not covering it. You should 100% read it. But what matters is this, right? May says, I'm telling you, I saw her. I saw Hee-chan there in Latveria. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Now, the person she's talking about is Hisako, Armor. Right? And that's the crazy thing, is in Ultimate X-Men issue number 12, there was a whole story arc that I won't go into because we're probably going to cover it, but basically, she's been MIA for pretty much this whole time. But that's what the whole conversation is, right? Like, you're cracked, May. All we saw in that video was a red blur. But that's where May's like, no, I saw her. Like, I know for a fact it was her. And that's where the question's asked. If there's any chance that Armor is alive, we have to go. And that's where they all kind of agree that needs to be done. So this is kind of the rest of the team showing up in the ultimate in-game threat, which kind of makes sense, right? Everything's sort of consolidating down into the city, but that's where Vision continues on, right? We have been monitoring the situation, preparing to support and maximize the impact of their efforts. I'm afraid there has been no news from inside or around the city. We've lost contact with anyone who gets close. I'm sorry, but I'm sure they're all okay. Now, this is the other part of the equation. It's what the Ultimate X-Men aren't really prepared for, because keep in mind, all those individuals within Latveria, right, who are surrounding this city have all basically been turned into zombies, which again is also a reference to the original Ultimate Universe in Marvel Comics. And so they're essentially showing up to confront a force that they are not overly familiar with. But that's when you jump back to Tony Stark in the city, and that's where he's told, basically by the Maker, is this all that you sent? Is this all that you could muster? Not much, are you? I expected more, somehow. And that's kind of the crazy thing, is because one of the things to remember about the Maker is that when Maker's talking to Tony Stark here in the Ultimate Universe, he's also thinking about the version of Tony Stark from the main Marvel Universe. Because remember, Maker has experienced both versions. And that's why he's always kind of taunted Tony in some form or another, right? You are nothing like the Tony I would expect, right? Different statements like that. Because you would expect Tony to basically be a genius, and even if it's only just an alcohol-induced haze, some kind of a hero within the Marvel Universe when you're not talking about the main Marvel Universe version. And that's why the Maker says, already I am beyond your comprehension. All of this is so small. And Peter chimes in, right? I knew all that swinging around skyscrapers would come back to haunt me. I've had nightmares like this. And the Maker says, you came here to fight, but how do you fight everything? The ground beneath your feet, the air in your lungs. I am all around you. I am inside of you. And that's where you pick up with Dr. Doom. Because Dr. Doom says, we understand all of this is an extension of the Maker, which makes this quite satisfying because he starts destroying little bits of the Maker. Lest we forget, Dr. Doom is Reed Richards in this universe who was twisted into becoming Dr. Doom by the Maker. And that's where Venom chimes into Peter and says, I could help if you just asked. And Peter says, I'm asking, right? This is me asking. And Venom's just like, was that so hard? And just like manifests. Which I love the way that that's done, right? It's absolutely phenomenal the way that's handled. But again, the Ultimates start figuring out how to defeat the Maker's forces. And that's where Peter kind of shows back up, right? What did you do? And America Chavez just says, what Deathlock told me to do, right? I attacked with a specific frequency of cosmic energy that they were vulnerable to. And so, of course, that's where Doom asks the question, like, how in the world do you understand her, right? And America's like, I don't know, I just listened. Which is kind of weird, because it's almost like Groot in Rocket Raccoon, right? You know, this Deathlock just is like, rah, 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 right? You know, but America Chavez understands her anyway. But it makes no difference whatsoever, because the Maker shows up here on the scene and says, so did I. I hear everything, even your thoughts. Right now, you're thinking, this is hopeless. And you're absolutely right, because that's what the Maker is banking on. A war of attrition, a war of overwhelming odds, because the Maker himself hasn't really even shown up here yet, assuming that he needs to, because when you're fighting the Maker here, you're fighting a whole city. The very air you breathe is poison. One does not simply walk into the city. I know some of you guys were thinking Lord of the Rings when I said that, and it's true, right? Because Dr. Doom says, what was the composition of that cosmic energy, America? And she says, it doesn't matter. The Maker adapts instantly and cannot be defeated the same way twice. All I did was buy us a moment of time. And that's where Peter chimes in. He says, look, what happened back there with your dad, he left you no choice. It was not your fault, Tony. And speaking as a father, I am telling you, it was his. But I have family too, and I have not been a great husband or a great father lately. I have to get back to them. I have to make it up to them. So snap out of it so we can escape out of here, because Tony's their only real way out. And that's what's so crazy, because everybody's funneling in, right? The Maker's forces are funneling in, everybody's loading into this place, and time stops instantly. It just freezes. And in that moment, Peter's looking up and just asks, is that you, right? Tony, are you the one who did this? And that's where somebody comes out of nowhere and just says, now that is a complicated question, only for us to find out Kang the Conqueror has arrived on the scene. Now, at that point, you jump back to the Ultimate X-Men. And it's one of the things that's said by canon, right? Like, we've been searching for hours, right? May, we have to rest. And that's where May asks, right? How can we rest when armor is here and potentially even hurt? But that's where canon just says, I have not found a trace of her. There's nothing to indicate she is here. Not only that, right? Now you have forces on the outside who are trying to destroy the wall to the city. And that's where the Maker kind of chimes in. He can influence, but cannot directly control anything outside of the immediate sphere of influence. These guys turn their weapons on the Ultimate X-Men, right? Mutants, free in the world. My, how things have changed. No matter, your genetic material will be a useful addition, because for the most part, it's one of the very few things he wasn't really able to get his hands on in a large, meaningful way. Now, a lot of that's because the Maker didn't necessarily need to, and he wasn't overly focusing on that. The Maker's defeat did not come as expected, right? The Maker intended to show up in this world, mess around with the time stream, change things like Peter Parker never becoming Spider-Man, and then just kind of ruling the whole place with an iron fist. But when it came to Howard Stark, when it came to Dr. Doom, these guys turning against the Maker, ultimately it led to him being momentarily defeated. And so what this is a scenario where now you have, I wouldn't call them unexpected powers, but a kind of element that the Maker didn't necessarily count on per se. And that's when he starts analyzing all of them, right? Weather manipulation, regeneration, energy blast, telepathy. One whiff is all I need to know everything that you're capable of and to develop counter mechanisms. But don't be afraid, be honored. You are about to become something so much bigger than yourself. And where they momentarily get the upper hand, they're all obliterated. And it turns out that these forces are destroyed by Eric Killmonger. Now, here's the kicker about Eric Killmonger and all of this, and it's one of these things where fans are a little on the fence, right? Where they're just kind of like, don't really know how I feel about it. A lot of people expected Black Panther to play a far more significant role than what we've been seeing in Ultimate Endgame. The fact that he hasn't has been a little bit of a shock to Marvel fans, especially considering how active he was within the Black Panther comic. More so than that, though, while you could debate his activity within the comic, the reality is that this is a massive crossover event. Black Panther not being a major focal part of it seems to kind of rub people the wrong way. But at the same time, the entire billing of Eric Killmonger within the Ultimate Universe so far has been that he's a freedom fighter. So it actually kind of makes more sense that Black Panther would stay within Wakanda, try to keep the place protected, and that Eric Killmonger would be the one to come out here and do fighting. Now, I also imagine it's because of the fact that with all this kind of being written in a way that seemingly took place after Marvel's announcement, kind of the surprise announcement to various writers that they were getting rid of the Ultimate Universe, there's a little bit of adjustment being done on the fly. So it was probably the original intention to build up Eric Killmonger as kind of being the hand of Black Panther, and the stories would focus mostly on him, and that's why we're getting things the way they are now. I'm not going to swear to that. I really haven't seen any interviews from Dennis Camp, but the fact is, right, May sees Eric Killmonger and freaks, right, like, oh my god, like, I'm such a big fan. Is Storm here, right? Can you introduce me? Have you seen your friend? Can you help us? It's all just like running out of her mouth. It's just like one giant run-on sentence. It's so cool to see, to be honest with you guys. This is one of the reasons why Ultimate X-Men has been so awesome. But at that point, you jump back into the city itself and you pick up with Spider-Man, right? What's going on? Why is everything frozen? And King just says, call it a temporal tourniquet. I tied off the flow of time around us in order for us to talk. So literally, he's basically created a time bubble. But one of the things he says is, do not get comfortable, Ultimates. The Maker will find some way to slip through or around it and to evolve past it. This is not permanent because the Maker always does this. And that's when you pick up with the version of the Maker that's in Doctor Doom's head. Because it's one of the things to keep in mind, right? When Maker originally screwed with Reed Richards, he left behind a kind of memory fragment of himself. Now, it's only been recently that we figured that out, but he whispers in the ears of Doom and seemingly controls Doom. I don't know if I would call it mind control per se, but a very powerful form of suggestion, right, is really what we could call it. And you'll see why I say that here in a second, because the Maker tells him, first Howard, now him. All my enemies delivered to me. Good boy, Doom, hold him here. And so in that moment, Doom asks, who are you, right? He's buying time. And the Maker actually kind of taunts Doom and is like, you don't know, right? Perhaps I removed too much brain matter because the Reed that I know would have figured it out by now. And King just says, all of this is just how I remember it. Every detail. You do not have much time left, and there's still a lot to do. So let me clear the air. I am the last king of everything, the ultimate victor. I live to the end of existence. A few million years from now, they will give me the title of Kang, and it will stick. And in fact, he says, it is one of the universe's first words from the first spoken language. Roughly translated, it means all-conqueror. But please, my friends, just call me Tony. Now, a lot of you guys called this. Full transparency here. A lot of you guys called this. A lot of you guys said this is 100% Tony Stark. There's no way it's not Tony Stark. We didn't know definitively, but now we do. And that's where Doom is like, there's no way it's Tony. And even Peter's just kind of like, everybody's got an evil double but me, unless Venom is my evil double. And Venom's just like, hey, I'm not evil. But Kang continues on. We have had this conversation an infinite number of times, but the look on your face never gets old, Doom. And so that's where Chavez just says, whatever this is, do not listen. That is not Tony, right? Tony is right here. And she kind of begs, right? Tony, come back to us. And she realizes he's in some kind of fugue state. But Kang just says, right, he will be fine. He just needs time to process. Trust me. And so Maker, chiming into the ear of Doom, says, with 2 Immortus engines, I could really start thinking big. There would be no limit to my expansion. Keep him talking, Doom. I am on my way. Because remember, the Maker having the Immortus engine, or an Immortus engine at all, would allow him to rewrite all of reality again and correct any mistakes he made. And given all the lengths he went to transform this universe, you can bet your bottom dollar this guy will fix every mistake, right? That is something he will most assuredly do. And so Doom asked the question, why would we trust you? And the response of Kang, because you trust him. You trust Tony. And he says, and I'm just him with a few billion years under his belt. I'm the same guy. And even Peter's just kind of like billions of years, right? You look exactly the same. And Kang just says, right, I am eternally trapped in the moment just before my first death. So I'll just never grow old. And Peter's like, you know, like Peter Pan. And Kang's just like a god, which is a much better response. And so America, in seeing this, asks, have you come back to help us kill the Maker? And the response of Kang, no, right? I would like nothing more But no, that is not how it happens. And so Doom asks the question, right? What do you mean by that? Isn't how it's supposed to happen? But the Maker is continually making his escape here. And so that's where Kang says, all of it, everything, the whole futile struggle, our great and total failure, your tragic, gruesome deaths. And that's where Peter's just like, wait a minute. Gruesome deaths. And the Maker just says, now, while he's distracted, disable him, but do not damage the engine. And that's where Kang just says, all of this is history. Everything is happening exactly as it's supposed to, because the Maker tells Doom to shoot, which he fires, hits Kang in the chest, and damages the Immortus engine. And at that point, the Maker's just like, you imbecile, right? You hit the engine. You were not supposed to do that. You have failed again. But he says, one time machine will have to do. I will kill Tony Stark. I will take his. I will rewrite history, and the day will be won. And so that's where America Chavez says, time is moving normally again. We will be dead in minutes. What were you thinking, Doom? And Doom just says, our objective is to kill the Maker. Whoever that was, Kang or Tony, refused to help. Either he was an agent of the Maker sent to sow confusion, or he was a distraction. In either case, he is a danger to our purpose. And that's where Peter asks, right? How does being dead help with that? And that's where Kang kind of mentions his last words, just as it's supposed to. Because in that moment, the Maker arrives on the scene, and literally they say, are the buildings bending around it? And Dr. Doom says, no, reality is bending around it. Try to remain calm. In effect, the Maker is bending reality in the here and now. It's kind of nuts, right? And that's where Spider-Man's like, so you just shot the only edge that we had here, right? And Doom just tells him, I don't think so. Whatever else he was, I think Kang was right about Tony. He has not been in a coma. He's been calculating, and I believe he is nearing a solution. And so the Maker just says, give me the boy's heart, and your fate will be terrible, but finite. Oppose me, and your suffering will be unending. And so in that moment, Tony comes to, fires off a repulsor shot, and just says, sorry to scare you everyone, I'm okay. Temporal mechanics was never my strong suit, but I think I'm getting the hang of it. And so the Maker just says, I made you, and I made all of you. You exist because of me. All of this is my design. And that's where Venom just says, Peter, something's wrong. And the Maker says, Picotech, ancient technology, but brutal. Skin 1 trillion tiny molecular razor blades. And he says, he was you. Your whole wasted life is in here. Do you ever wonder why you were number 1 on the list? Do you wonder about your special destiny? Do you wonder what it means? Let me tell you, nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And the Maker, in remaking the Venom Picotech suit and combining it with Spider-Man's existing suit, turns himself into Carnage. There was no significance to the order. You are not special. You were a box on a to-do list. You left your family for nothing, wasted your last years with them for nothing. And where Spider-Man cusses at him, right? Peter literally swears at this guy. In that moment, Maker says, you died for nothing, and kills Peter Parker on the spot. Spider-Man's dead. Right? You see why I didn't want to spoil this, right? Son, as soon as I read this, I was just like, they killed Ultimate Spider-Man? Now here's the thing. This is the thing that's driving people nuts across social media, because some people are saying this is like Dennis Camp's and Marvel's cheap attempt to duplicate what happened in the Ultimate Universe, the original Ultimate Universe, but there are people out there who were saying, do we know he's actually dead? Peter Parker's been stabbed before. None of this is new, right? But in this moment, by all standards of measurement, he's dead. And that's where Tony Stark is like, you killed Spider-Man, right? And the Maker just says, it was always leading to this, Parker. I think deep down, you knew that. And he says, the carnage, isn't it beautiful? And so that's where you switch over to Mary Jane Watson and to Richard, right? And Richard asks, Mom, are you okay? And she says, of course, I was just getting some air. Why? And he says, because it's 4 a.m. and I heard you crying. Why were you crying? And she says, I'm actually not sure. I didn't really know that I was. I guess I was just lost in the stars. And he says, but Mom, we're underground. There are no stars down here. And that's when you switch over to a letter written by Peter Parker to Mary Jane Watson. And this is beautiful. I guarantee it's going to make you cry. He says, if you're reading this, then I am dead, which makes you a widow, which is convenient if you want to run the whole spider-themed superhero thing by yourself. And that's where he apologizes and says, hiding behind humor has always been my thing, as you're too well aware. What is it Richard says? The worse the situation, the worse the jokes. I should probably see a therapist about it, but I guess that ship has sailed. It feels like there's so much left unsaid between us, even more left undone, more than could ever fit into 1,000 letters, more than all the words in all the languages. I wish we'd had more time, and I thought there would be more time. It's just not fair. None of this is fair, which I guess was the whole point of everything. I am screwing this up already because I'm no writer. I'm a photographer. I speak in images, not words. I look back on our life and I see a series of still shots, each one perfectly, imperfectly composed. And that's what I'm thinking about now. Richard at 2 years old, terrified, screaming in the arms of a false mall Santa. May, about 1 year old, dancing awkwardly to a terrible pop song that I can't remember. Her face, a study of concentration. The first time May met a dog, the dog licking her fingers as she squeals with delight. Richard was born, drinking at your breast, the inexplicable light that came from you both. And I'm thinking about all the photos that I'll never get to take, but would have loved to. Richard's wedding, moving May into her dorm for her first day of college, a series of photos watching you grow older and more beautiful. Each line on your face, a story. Christmas with the grandkids, and we are so many, we struggle to squeeze into the frame. Maybe it was all a mistake. Maybe I should have squashed that spider with my shoe and thrown that damn box in the trash and quit my job and lived out the last 2 years in some tropical paradise with you and the kids. Maybe it was stupid to think that I could make a difference, or just selfish. 2 years. Some destiny, all in, a pretty underwhelming career for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I have written letters for the kids. They're not much, but I hope that you will give them to them. I want you to remember me, but I want them to move on too. All of you. I never wanted them to lose a parent. I'm sensitive to it for obvious reasons, but if it had to be one of us, I'm glad it's me. You were always the strong one. I could not go on without you, but you can, you will, for Richard and May, you will. You have your whole lives ahead of you, and I want you to know that whatever you become, it's okay. I will be proud of you so long as you love the kids and love yourself. I will be proud of you. Do not let me or the memory of me hold you back. I release you. I hit the jackpot, MJ. I didn't need you to tell me. I knew from the moment I laid eyes on you. And every year, every prize just got bigger and bigger. Waking up was winning the lottery. Every day. You and me against the world. Always. God, it's almost bringing me to tears. It's a phenomenal letter, right? This is how it ends. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this to an end. One of the greatest single comics that I think I've ever read. I think we still have 2 more issues. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.
Yeah, man, that was messed up, dude. I'm like, damn. So then Ultimate Universe, yeah, so they killed off, so they deleted Spider-Man. So yeah, so there's no wonder why there's talks of them wrapping up, or it could be like highly likely now where they're gonna wrap up the Ultimate Universe because they're like, well, it's not Marvel Comics, if there's no Spider-Man, so can't have Spider-Man in that universe, and it's not Marvel, but whatever. I'm like, damn, I guess. And let's see that Kane the Conqueror popped up, whatever, in a suit, but everybody was calling today that's not actually Kane the Conqueror. That's actually Tony. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, wow, that's really fucked up, man. I'm like, yeah, there's just so much shit in there in the maker, man. He's a motherfucker. And I'm like, damn. So, and when it comes to other characters like Noel, I'm wondering, are they gonna come out with Noel, the ultimate Noel, or are they just gonna wrap it up now? Because speaking of which, that's what we're gonna cover, because there's a writer that came back out with Noel. So, and and yeah, and so I'm like, yeah, I'm highly curious, and yeah, and no, he's getting a little OP and shit. So I'm like, oh wow, let me share this with you guys real quick. All right, so yes, I got more videos to show, some more videos to show before we end this, and then get into our anime night. So all right, so yeah, let's get into this one real quick. This is from our guy, our brother from Keep It Comics, I believe.
Yo, so by the end of this video here, No, the once King in Black goes from getting his spine rearranged by Thanos to then going to the core of a star, all just to see Eddie Brock. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to Keep It a Comic, and today we are breaking down No, issue number 3 by Al Ewing and Tom Waltz, and art by Juanan Ramirez. Man, so we open up with a full-on monologue here from Thanos, and he starts off by saying, I want to know what love is. No, I'm kidding. He actually asked the question. He's like, do you know what love is? And then he goes into it. He's like, I have loved death with a fire and a passion unmatched by all the collected verses of the universe's most celebrated ballads. I have undertaken impossible quests, laid intricate plans, dreamed great and terrible dreams, because that is who I am. I am the poet. I am the philosopher. I am the grand dreamer whose name conjures the horror of the end across galaxies. I am a Thanos, little god. This man is out here writing himself a love letter while we're trying to figure out who the heck is he talking to. And when we find out, of course, he's talking to No. So Thanos here lifts No up by the neck, mid-monologue, and he finishes his diatribe. He's like, and who exactly are you but a single shrieking note howling through eternity? And No is literally here just like gargling. The man can't even get a damn word out, and all to the amusement here of Thanos, of course. So Thanos just tosses this dude, and I'm not gonna lie, that kind of made me chuckle a little bit here, just for him to just like toss homeboy like a rag doll, man. But Thanos ain't done. He wants to make a point here, because then he goes and he grabs him by the hair and tells him, you are not but a mewling sheep, and all sheep require a shepherd to help them find their way. I am here to help you find your way, No. But here's the thing, man. No still got some teeth on him, right? So he claps back and he's like, I suppose that these are your mangy sheepdogs then? Pointing at the Outriders. And Thanos is like, nah, these are my children, loyal unto death. And then he just slams him to the ground one more time for good measure. Now, what follows here is Thanos putting on an absolute cling. I mean, he's wailing on No and going back to his monologue at the same time while he's doing it. And he takes a moment to talk about death one more time. He's like, it wasn't death's beauty that earned his love. It was her simplicity, her finality, death as the true void, no mercy, no sympathy, no sentimentality. But his one complaint, his one gripe was that she wore a human face. She embodied the lives that she took. And in the end, that empathy, he just couldn't stomach it. And then, as is the theme here for this particular issue, he lifts up No one more time. And then he hits him with this. He's like, but if I was disappointed in her, then I despise you, because you are of the void, and yet you have a face that I can strike. You got bones that I can break, a voice that shrieks in pain. And honestly, this is the thing that's really pissing Thanos off. He's like, no, you're not even trying. But right here, No actually does something that actually impresses Thanos. He disappears into the shadows, and then No says this. He's like, I'll grant you one thing, Titan. In all your comings and goings, you certainly cast a long shadow. And Thanos is like, all right, now it looks like we gotta fight. He is loving this moment, this fight back here that Noah's giving him. So he picks up the Spear of Light, and that's the weapon here that Noah was originally on this planet searching for in the first place. And he goes, but tell me, Noah, where is the darkness for you to exploit? And all this blinding light as he uses this weapon here against Noel. And it's in this moment that had me like, yo, what the heck did I just see? Because no, he hits him with this. He's like, unfortunately for you, the answer to that query as he disappears one more time can only be found. And then he says within. And listen to me, I don't know what No just did. If he went into his body and pulled out the darkness out of him, I have no idea what it is that he did. But all I gotta say is that, as you can see here, Thanos is the one that is now shrieking in pain. He got his gut spewing out of him here, and then he's falling on the knees here to the ground, and he's trying to hold his stomach in. Yo, this panel right here, oh my goodness, this is crazy. So now Nola's standing over Thanos here, and he picks up the Spear of Light and goes, all things being equal, I must say, Thanos, I much prefer broken bones. And Thanos, well, at this particular time, he actually collapses over. Before he hadn't collapsed over, but now he collapsed over. You get the point. Thanos is done, okay? So now the Outriders are standing there with no leader, and the only thing that they can say is, well, I mean, I guess, looking at you now, Noel, I guess we serve you. And listen right here, you got to help me with this one. Because as Noel is using the staff here, he's like, do you see, my children? Despite our losses, our family grows. A new void awaits us now, and I will seize it, conquer it, and then control it. And then this is when we see those Outriders. It looks for a second here that he's blowing them up, but I'm also wondering, did he also take them on into his family as well? You guys let me know. Because as we see him kind of like igniting the Outriders, he says the words, and we will become more powerful than never before or ever before. From endless darkness, accursed burning light. From burning light, cold, merciless revenge. And as he leaves, all we see here is nothing but smoke behind him. We see Thanos, of course, on the ground, and then we do see the past God of Light, who they got the weapon from, just laying there as well. So maybe I'm answering my own question. Maybe he did obliterate them. I'm just saying, y'all let me know. Put a pin in that, because, you know, there's another party here in this story, and that is Hela. And she starts off with a very similar question here that Thanos had. Actually, the exact question that Thanos had at the very top of this here. She says, do you know what love is? Now we find that they're currently here at an orbital space, or at an orbital space station out in New Mord, at a place called the homeworld of the Brotherhood of the Badoon. Now she continues here with her question. She's like, a rather odd question to ask at a time like this, I realize, but I must admit, I'm growing quite enamored of my new powers, good tier. And what we see here is that Hela is just cutting through these soldiers here like it's nothing, just wrapped in black symbiote tendrils here, absolutely thriving with this new power that she has. Or I should say, stolen from No. Now, Tyr is kind of playing along. He's like agreeing, like, yeah, you know, your power is increasing by the second, and wondering out loud if maybe Noel is finally dead, and that's the reason why she's getting this increase. But Hela's like, nah, like he's still living, just substantially weakened, and she can still hear his voice in the hive mind, like a distant echo. And Tyr's like, yeah, but I would prefer if he was silent. But Hela, she's been confident through this whole thing. According to her, she believes that everything is going according to her plan. She says, fear not, General. No's ridiculous quest for powers that he can neither comprehend nor control will be his ultimate undoing. The entirety of his void power shall soon belong to me. Now, if you ask me here, this whole sort of like sequence is just Al Ewing and Tom Walsh just showing Hela's new powers. It's like a flexing montage, right? She takes down the Badoon general. She tells him his old planet is already lost, and just looks out the window at the planet being consumed by dark energy like it's a view that she's paid for, right? This is all clearly building toward that Queen in Black series coming later on this year. So we will continue to have to see here how exactly that plays off. Now, for this specific issue, what I do find way more interesting is that we do shift back here to seeing Noel flying out in space with no spaceship, by the way, just him his minions, and of course the star that he's flying directly into. So let's talk about that, because you might be asking yourself, wait, like how does No have the Spear of Light in the first place? He got destroyed by the Enigma Force. Shouldn't this weapon be the last thing that he could actually be able to touch? And this issue actually starts to answer that, because he's flying toward the star and he goes, despite the inferno that awaits us, we must continue forward at all costs. Our ultimate destiny is locked away within the core of the star, and now I possess the key to open it and the harsh experience to survive it. And then he drops the context for why he can survive it. He says, we owe that to the sniveling earthling and venom host, Eddie Brock, who exiled me to a fiery, deathless limbo, tearing away my station as King in Black, only to pathetically surrender my rightful crown like the worthless insect that he truly is. So Eddie Brock threw No into the sun using the Enigma Force, and rather than dying, No spent an entire time in a fiery limbo, and that experience is now what makes him capable of surviving a direct dive into a star's core. Listen, I don't know if you're buying it. There's definitely more to it, right? But that's the explanation that we're getting for now. But it would seem that Eddie Brock inadvertently sort of like hardened him to this. And then No says this, he's like, Hela will fail too, as did her lapdog Thanos before her, as did Brock. But here's the line that really hits for me. It is Brock that I hate the most of all, more than Thanos, more than Hela, more than even the light. And that is personal right there. Eddie Brock is not just a name to know, he is the reason, the fuel. And then because this comic loves to be crazy, No flips it and says, and yet it is Brock who will also save me, save us all. And of course, he's talking here about his children. So the man that he hates most is also the key to his salvation. Make it make sense, right? Well, I think we potentially will understand that in a couple seconds from now, because as No dives straight into the star, his body is getting singed, he's burning, and then he comes out on the other side or goes deeper in. Like, it's honestly kind of hard to tell. But when he looks up, there's a figure that is waiting for him, and this figure says, welcome to Lumina, No. Took you long enough. And then we are told that this is the Illuminated, also known as Eddie Brock of Earth 62466. Now, I'm not ashamed to admit here, I don't know everything in the world about comics, right? But this, what I found out. So obviously, this is an alternate universe Eddie Brock, right? His story starts almost identical to Eddie Brock, the one that we know. He bonds with the Venom symbiote, he becomes the King in Black, the whole thing. But here's where he splits from the other version, our Eddie Brock that we know. He chose the light. He's the only Eddie Brock across the entire multiverse who ever fully committed to that path and then stayed on it. He went on to rebuild the symbiote hive mind into something healing rather than destructive, and eventually made his way to Lumina, which is basically the light force dimension. Think of it as the light's answer to the void, the closest thing to a doorstep to heaven that exists in this universe. He first showed up in Venom Original Sin issue #1 here. So think about it from this way, right? No, the King in Black, the God of the Void, just flew directly into a star driven by his hatred of Eddie Brock, who is waiting for him on the other side, the best possible version of Eddie Brock, the one who beat darkness entirely. Well, so I guess this is how No becomes Null of the Light. So we got some big questions here heading into issue #4. What does the Illuminated want with No, or what does No want with the Illuminated? Is this an alliance, a confrontation, or something else entirely? Leave it down below here in the comments. Also, leave a like on this video for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. Also, if you love what we're doing here at Keeping It Comic and you want to support us to see us grow further, then consider becoming a channel member or join us on Patreon. We appreciate you watching, and as always, thank you so much for kicking it with Keeping It Comic. Bye!
Oh yeah, shout out to Keeping It Comic, man, for coming out with that right there, man. That that issue for us, man. The news of that comic right there. Yes, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of hyped, man. I'm excited, dude, because I'm like, damn. I look at Noah as like, man, a badass character, man. Just, dude, like he was a King of Black, but now it's just, I'm like, you know, they're gonna use excuse me, these writers, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, man. So they're gonna choose to make a creative scenario where he's able to wield the power of light now, even though he's supposed to be like all of darkness or whatever. But they wrote it in where like basically by Eddie Brock killing him, basically caused him to escape his ties to that throne. So I guess they made it, for him to where he's able not to now wield the power of light. Now I guess is just weird. That part's a little weird. I don't know, but uh, because I'm like, damn, like doesn't that go against like his whole one thing, bro didn't mention from Keeping Comic was that was Noel's whole thing. You know what I mean? His core mission was to rid everything back to darkness. So I'm like, it just kind of go against the main premise of the character, what I'm saying. So it's just, yeah, And then Thanos, man, let's get on that shit. I'm like, damn, Thanos was whooping his ass, man. Like, all the while Noel was smiling and shit, setting them up. Then ends up ripping out Thanos' guts. I'm like, damn. So I'm like, so Thanos been taken out by what, 3 or 4 people, huh? Okay. So rips his gut out, takes the spear, and ends up getting this the power of light. And he charges off into the star, and he ends up seeing uh what 24642 what Earth 246 something, the whole nother Earth where we get where they show us the best version, I guess, of Eddie Brock, who chose not to take to accept darkness, but he chose to accept light. And I'm like, okay. And he created this whole little realm where it's like a little heaven in a sense, a, a version of what they believe was heaven, or close to what heaven should be looking like. I don't know, but yeah. So shout out to him, man, for that. But it's interesting. I'm kind of see what's going to happen. And we see Helena. I'm like, Hella, she that bitch. I'm like, damn, she was already powerful. Like when hell before she ended up getting that symbiote, the symbiote suit, her and her crew. And now with that suit, man, she's even more powerful going through, and then gaining more power, and as she continues on, what I mean, towards her, and complete her mission, which is possibly gaining more power, and they're gonna reveal that later on too of what she's truly after. So I'm like, damn. So she made herself. They made this bitch like more powerful than and like he said, they're setting up everything for this for the next Queen in Black series. Which I'm like, oh, you motherfuckers will make that, but well. But I'm kind of, I'll be still curious to read it and check it out, to look at it, um, to see how far it goes. So can't wait for these brothers to post that out. So yeah, to put that out there for us, so we can all check that out together. Because yeah, like to see what all kind of power this bitch is gonna be bringing. This wicked evil bitch who wasn't even terrified or scared of Noah at all. And this bitch basically looked at him and was like, "Oh, hell, I've seen terrifying creatures. Damn hell." This bitch said she had terrifying looking creatures bow to her, huh? I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess Noah's gonna work his way. It's gonna work his way up to where Noah's gonna get this all this power and shit. Noah's gonna come back, and then in the end, he's gonna end up having this big fight with Hela, who is keep in mind, remember, the sister of Thor. So yeah, but yeah, let's check out another video real quick, y'all. So yeah, because like I said, I want to hurry up and get through these real quick. But yeah, so again, shout out to our boy, keeping it comic, our good brother there. So yeah, we're going.
Yo,
Oh no, yep, okay. All right, here we go. Here's this one right here. I think this. I forgot who this is from. I think this is from Variant Comics. So yeah, shout out to them from Variant Comics. Check this one out with me. This is, for the first time. First time checking this out.
What's up, everybody? Last year, we got our first crossover between Marvel and DC in many years when Batman teamed up with Deadpool. Well, the two powerhouse publishers are keeping that train rolling with Superman Spider-Man #1. And this story is actually the next in a series of crossovers between the Man of Steel and the Wallcrawler. The first being Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man from 1976, and the second being Superman and Spider-Man from 1981. In fact, DC and Marvel actually timed the release of this new crossover story with that original Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man issue. And let me just say, the original crossover was a ton of fun. It's an absolute classic, and the new Superman Spider-Man crossover might be even better. It's got several different stories and a ton of incredible variant covers. But I have to say, out of all of the variant covers, I think my favorite has to be the G cover by Gabriel Del Otto, featuring Black Suit Superman and Black Suit Spider-Man. That cover is amazing, and it's actually a reference to the second story in this issue, where we see Superboy Prime team up with Black Suit Spider-Man, which we're actually going to be covering in a separate episode later on today, so keep an eye out for that. But in case you were unaware, just like with the Batman Deadpool comic, you can only get this Superman Spider-Man crossover issue as a physical comic, which if you're a comic fan is the way you want it anyway. But the point is, you can't buy these DC Marvel crossovers in digital format. So to make sure that all of you guys have a chance to get your hands on a first print copy of this Superman Spider-Man #1, we've got a limited supply of the A cover and then a variety of the variant covers available for you to buy right now at variantcomics.com. And that includes a very limited number of that G cover by Gabriel Del Otto. So if you want to grab one for yourself in your collection, they're available right now at retail price at variantcomics.com. But as always, it's first come, first serve. And again, it's a very limited number. So if you want one, grab one before they're gone. But with all that said, let's jump into the main story. The issue opens up in New York City, where we find Doc Ock tinkering with some robotics inside of his lab. And he's talking to a new AI model on his phone called Discern, which, if I'm being honest, is a terrible name, but it's a Spider-Man comic, so it somehow works. Anyway, Discern says, "Good morning, Dr. Octavius. How may I help you?" To which Doc Ock replies, "Discern, sate my idle curiosity. Who does the public currently consider the world's leading expert in cyber robotics?" The AI tells him, according to online sources, Dr. William Magnus is considered. Otto then cuts off the AI, screaming, "Wrong!" He then asks, "Discern, who is our leading authority on radiation?" And it replies, "Generally, Dr. Robert Bruce Banner is known as..." But yet again, before it can finish, Dr. Octopus swats the phone into the wall using one of his tentacles while mumbling to himself, "Artificial intelligence, my arse." He then says to himself, "Let the public fear me. Let them call me Dr. Octopus. Let them refer to me as a criminal. But let them never, ever forget my accomplishments." Otto then sighs and says, "Discern, what will it take to finally educate 7 billion lackwits of my genius?" However, a completely different voice responds this time, saying, "You can begin today once you turn from the abyss humans call self-pity." And as Dr. Octopus responds with shock, something takes control of his tentacles and begins to assemble the robotic head in front of him even faster. As the mystery voice tells him, "If scientific recognition is your desire, I can offer you a place in galactic history, but it will require your cooperation." Otto says, "This isn't a simple AI. What are you doing? How did you take control of my arms? Who are you?" Followed by a full view of this robotic head that is now active and has spider legs, as he replies, "You may call me Brainiac," which is a crazy villain to introduce for this crossover team up. In the first ever Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man issue from 1976, Doc Ock was also one of the villains, but he teamed up with Lex Luthor in that one. So this time he's getting a second go with at least Brainiac. Let's see if there's more. Anyway, on the next page, we are taken to Metropolis, where we already find Clark Kent and Peter Parker together, and they're entering Star Labs. So again, if you're familiar with that first Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man crossover, this is very much looking like it's picking up right where that one left off. Anyway, as they're entering, Peter says to Clark, "Thank thanks again for the lift, Clark. I'm so broke a guy stole my identity and then begged me to take it back. Clark responds, don't mention it. New York's not that far, and if your hunch is right, we're square. Peter then says, and if not, at least I'll have some pics to sell. Cha-ching, even if I'm not here officially just to investigate. Stand back, Woodward and Bernstein. Two journalists on the move, standing up for truth and justice. However, Clark is either not paying attention or he's completely unamused as he says to himself, as they get in the elevator. So Peter asks, what? Is it my extremely outdated reference? But Clark tells him, it's nothing. Follow my lead. Once inside, we see that something or someone blew a hole in the side of the building to break into Star Labs. And Dr. Clyburn, one of the head scientists there, tells Clark, you and your shutterbug are a little late, Mr. Kent. The wire services already have the story. To which Clark responds, theft of radioactive material by a mysterious figure with inhuman strength. I'm tempted to say just another day in Metropolis, Dr. Clyburn, but you seem especially distraught. Peter, you wanted to check out the point of entry? As Peter takes the cue from Clark and starts taking pictures of the entryway. Clark then tells Dr. Clyburn, your statement to the press was awfully vague. As a friend, what can you tell me off the record? The doctor then opens up a little bit and says, fine, Mr. Kent. It wasn't just the material. It was a lot of the attendant tech. We've been experimenting with fast neutrons. However, Peter jumps in and finishes that thought by saying, a way of using radiation to transmit data far more efficiently than Wi-Fi since the signal can't be blocked by anything. Sorry, science is kind of my thing. Pete then asks, lots of labs are fooling around with fast neutrons, doctor. Why are you being so secretive? And Dr. Clyburn tells him, because those other labs are using California. We were using kryptonite, which of course gets an immediate reaction out of Clark, and the two head out of the building. I also have to say, I don't think I've ever seen a scientist working in a lab wearing 6-inch heels and fishnet stockings. But hey, America. Anyway, as we see Clark and Peter heading out onto the streets of Metropolis, Clark asks Peter, well? To which Pete responds, just what I was worried about. Distinct claw marks, definitely Dr. Octopus's tentacles. And now he has kryptonite? They then run into an alley as Clark says, I have to find him before... But Peter chimes in, whoa, not on your own, pal. And the two begin to transform into Superman and Spider-Man. However, Pete is a little bit slower and he says, hey, wait up! Followed by an absolutely iconic looking splash page of Superman flying through the air and Spider-Man web slinging alongside him, as we also get the title Truth, Justice, and Great Responsibility. Which, come on guys, that's just a perfect freaking mashup. I love that. Spider-Man also hits Supes with the line, I bet you're not this impatient with Batman. But as we turn the page, we are taken to orbit where we find Brainiac's skull ship. And Brainiac himself is telling Dr. Octopus, I've been poisoned, Dr. Octavius. This is what we are attempting to resolve. Prior to their extermination, the sentients orbiting star A252 deceived me into uploading a debilitating mind virus. With your aid, I can offload it into the carbon apes of this mudball. Their brains are the perfect repository. Doc Ock replies, blunt, but understood. Prepare to begin transference and offload. Followed by a view of Doc Ock in his lab back on Earth, and he's staring at the kryptonite that was stolen while Brainiac says, then your new laboratory is sufficient? The device is complete? To which Octavius replies, you insult me. It's been complete for hours. I've simply been enchanted by this xenomineral and its potential. It's more than a weapon. In my hands, it can create the ultimate neural net. Using your ship as a relay satellite, with this device, I can transmit whatever we wish directly into millions of human brains. And in return, as we agreed, followed by Brainiac adding, your reach will at last equal your grasp. Travel with me, and world upon world will bow before the genius of Otto Octavius. As Doc Ock finishes by saying, leaving this ungrateful mudball behind. Excellent. We then cut back to Metropolis where we find Superman and Spider-Man above the Daily Planet. And Supes is scanning the city trying to find any trace of Doc Ock. Spider-Man asks, nothing? And Superman replies, not yet. Perhaps Octopus went back to New York? But at that moment, Superman reacts in pain and begins to fall out of the sky as Spider-Man dives after him saying, I thought you and Gravity had an arrangement. Spidey catches up to him in midair, grabs his cape, and swings him onto the rooftop of the Daily Planet. And he asks, you all right? To which Superman replies, no, your friend is here, all right? And so is the kryptonite. He then becomes confused as he continues to say, I can feel it in the air? Cut with something. It's faint, but it's painful. A light bulb then goes off for both of them as they look at each other and say, fast neutrons. Spider-Man then adds, wherever Ock's hiding, he's literally broadcasting on a K radiation band. No offense, but why is he going after you instead of me? To which Superman replies, Peter, I don't think this is about me, as he hears the sounds of crashing, and we see it's an out-of-control semi-truck plowing through traffic on a metropolis street. We also see that the truck driver and innocent bystanders in the street are in pain and are reciting ones and zeros. So Supes and Spider-Man spring into action, with Spider-Man calling the bystanders and Superman calling the truck. Then after each of them handle their end of that problem, they look up to see a bunch of people in the same pain as the others, with Superman saying, "No one's doing anything but suffering. They're in too much pain." Spider-Man replies, "They're all in transmission range. Something about the signal," as he also begins to repeat ones and zeros. He then screams in pain, but Superman grabs him by the shoulder and says, "Concentrate. It's pounding at my head too. Snap out of it," which Spidey does, and he tells Supes, "Garbage in, garbage out." Ock's using the K radiation to dump some sort of data override into everyone's brain. Superman then uses his X-ray vision, followed by a view of what he sees, and he tells Spider-Man it's happening all over Metropolis. We then see Superman and Spider-Man flying around Metropolis saving people, followed by Spider-Man finally saying, "Good Lord, Ock, what have you done this time?" I don't get the computer data angle though. However, he looks up and realizes that Superman is not doing well, and Superman tells him, "Even though the K isn't as concentrated in this form, the longer I stay in the city, the weaker I get." Spider-Man then admits, "And I'm still struggling to focus. We have to find that green rock pronto. You got any X-ray vision left in you?" To which Superman replies, "I think so," followed by immediately seeing a huge fire in an apartment building, and he says, "Great Scott." So he picks up Spider-Man and flies him toward the building, with Spidey asking, "How many?" And Supes tells him, 3 inside, no firefighters to help, let's go." But just as they're about to enter the building, Spider-Man says, "Hang on, I've got spider sense to warn me if the roof starts to cave in. You, on the other hand, look like a sneeze could drop you. You could burn." But Superman tells him, "I'm going in, full stop. However, if you want to provide me a little insurance, I'll take it." And on the next panel, we see Superman walk into a flame-engulfed apartment looking like Super Mummy, covered from head to toe in Spider-Man's webbing. And he reaches out to a kid who's trapped in the fire saying, "Come with me, you'll be all right." We then see Spider-Man outside also ushering some people out of the fire saying, "Trust me, I do this for a living." But at that moment, his spider sense goes off because a beam comes crashing down. But just before it hits him, we see Superman's super breath blow it away as Spidey says, "Wow, even his breath smells like sandalwood." We then cut to outside the building as Superman says, "That's everyone." To which Spider-Man replies, "Good, because these crises are stacking up. These two are having seizures. We have to get them to a hospital." However, Superman checks their pulse and says, "We're too late. I'm afraid they're gone." He then begins to glitch out himself as he continues, "This data stream isn't just distracting, it's fatal." Spidey says, "My God, this isn't Ock's MO. Maybe he's got a partner? Who else traffics in raw data?" At which point the now pissed off Superman looks up because he realizes exactly who he's dealing with. And he tells Spidey, "I see the broadcast device in a lab 3 blocks north. Shut Octopus down, I'll deal with his ally." They both then take off into the air, but Spider-Man says, "Wait, are you in any shape to fly? Where can you go to get out of the kryptonite's range?" To which Superman replies, "Up." We then get an awesome panel of Superman bursting out of Earth's orbit, leaving a red streak behind him as he blasts through the wall of Brainiac's skull ship, screaming, "Brainiac!" However, once inside, he looks up to find Dr. Octopus standing in front of him, and he now has kryptonite-infused tentacles. Octavius then tells the Man of Steel, "There was no need to storm your way in, Superman. I'm happy to have you here. I was anticipating your arrival." And we simultaneously see that the kryptonite is wreaking havoc on Superman already. Then from here, we return to Doc Ock's lab back in Metropolis, and it appears that Brainiac and Doc Ock have switched places because we now find Brainiac in the lab while trying to radio into Doc Ock on the skull ship saying, "Octavius, I sensed a hull breach. Is anything amiss or..." But before he can finish that transmission, he looks up to see Spider-Man crawling in, and Spidey asks, "Who are you? Where's..." To which Brainiac replies, "Octavius, already aboard my ship. I am Brainiac. That is all you need to know." To which Spider-Man replies, "Well, that and you're murdering people." And Brainiac confesses, "No, I am cleansing myself of a virus. It's not my fault that the human brain seems incapable of safely containing corrupted data." But Spidey isn't having it, and he says, "They're human beings, not trash receptacles. Stop this. Your gizmo is killing helpless victims." Off it goes as he leaps toward the machine to turn it off. But Brainiac flies in and knocks him across the room while saying, "I think not." From here, we cut back to the skull ship where we find Superman is struggling against Doc Ock and these kryptonite tentacles. And Octavius Octavius tells him, while Brainiac went to close affairs, I took precautions. Would that I had time to more accurately synthesize kryptonite, but this should be enough to end you. However, Superman replies, forget me, you're slaughtering thousands. You don't want this, Doctor. You're not like Brainiac. But Doc Ock tells him, you don't know me. Then on the next panel, we return to the lab where we see Brainiac continuing to attack Spider-Man while saying, I can calculate your next move every time. I am your doom. But Spider-Man manages to dodge, causing Brainiac to strike a column instead. We then return to the Skull Ship once again where we see Superman gather enough strength to punch Doc Ock across the face while telling him, I read about you before the accident that turned you. It's not too late to reform. Clark Kent wrote an article years ago, called you brilliant, another Einstein. Octavius then looks at Superman through his shattered glasses and wipes the blood from his nose while asking, you remember that? We then turn the page and go back to the fight between Spider-Man and Brainiac, with Spider-Man saying, Spider sense beats math, as he kicks Brainiac across the face. Brainiac then tries to hit him while saying, incredible, your reflexes. To which Spider-Man snarkily replies, well, you know what they say, with great power comes great responsibility. Peter always with the puns, and he goes on to say, hey, I'm not asking for trouble, but if you're gonna fight, shouldn't you be punching me? Is that a surrender? However, Brainiac just smiles and says, hardly. I'm estimating the stress points of the building and the force necessary to bring it down. As we see him destroy several columns, causing the roof to collapse on top of Spider-Man. Brainiac then escapes while saying, my work here is done, uploading consciousness to Beetlejuice Outpost. As we see his consciousness transport out and his body collapse to the ground in front of Spider-Man. We then see that Superman is still knocking Doc Ock around, and he actually manages to knock him unconscious. But when we return to Spider-Man, we get what is arguably the coolest part of this entire issue, which is a great homage to the iconic scene in The Amazing Spider-Man 33 by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, where Spider-Man also gets trapped under a collapsed building. It's such an iconic moment in Spider-Man's history, especially with that Steve Ditko art, that the MCU also gave us a live-action version of that scene in Spider-Man Homecoming. Anyway, Superman radios into Spider-Man saying, can you hear me? You have to deactivate that machine now. But Peter struggles to say, I'm a little buried right this second. But on the next panel, we see that the Skull Ship is on fire and barreling toward Earth as Superman continues to say, listen to me. Brainiac cut power to change the trajectory of his ship. It's falling right toward Metropolis, and I won't be strong enough to stop it inside a kryptonite web. So Spider-Man musters whatever strength he has and says, copy that, one thwip coming up. But he immediately realizes he's completely out of web fluid, and he says, oh good, what a time to run out of web fluid, and collapses back to the ground. However, Superman, who's doing everything he can to stop the Skull Ship from crashing into Metropolis, tells him, you can do this, Peter. And at that moment, Spider-Man directly references that iconic scene in Spider-Man 33 when he says to himself, come on, Spidey, this isn't the first time you've been buried under rubble. Push. Superman then screams, I believe in you, as we see Spider-Man use every ounce of strength in his body while saying, no, 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 an extinction level event was not on my calendar. Come on. He then screams as he finally manages to push the rubble off him and turn the power off to the machine, which cuts off the kryptonite, allowing Superman the strength to keep the Skull Ship from hitting the ground. Supes then radios into Spider-Man saying, we did it, partner. Spider-Man asks, no boom? To which Superman replies, no boom, as Spider-Man collapses to the ground in relief. We then jump forward and find Clark and Peter back at the Daily Planet, where Peter is turning in the pictures he took to Perry White. Perry tells him, nice work, kid, you're good. This is front page stuff. Kent, get Mr. Parker to payroll so he can cash his voucher. And Peter, you and your camera are welcome at the Daily Planet anytime. Maybe you can give Olsen some tips. Peter thanks Perry, and as they walk out of the office, he looks at the check saying, so many zeros. But Clark again doesn't respond, so Peter says, what, again with the dramatic pause? Out with it. What's eating you? And as they walk up the stairs, Clark tells him, Pete, I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but you've spent years selling Spider-Man pictures to J. Jonah Spider-Man Threader Menace Jameson, knowing full well that they were being used to promote hateful news about you that wasn't true. Why? And as they look out at the skyline from the rooftop, Pete tells him 2 points. First, the only person it hurt was me. That's also the truth. Second, you're missing the punchline. All that time, Jameson had no idea he was paying for Spider-Man to go to college, which causes Clark to wink and say, touche. Pete then goes on to tell him, all that said, it must be nice to operate in a city that loves you. Clark then begins to transform into Superman as he says, the feeling is mutual, that helps. He then asks Pete, lift home? Followed by Peter also beginning to change into Spider-Man while responding, so polite, no wonder my aunt has a crush on you. To which Clark replies, don't tell Lois. Off we go. Pete then smiles while pulling the spider mask down over his face while saying, for the last for slugging her time, slow down. How about playing tour guide first? As we see him attach a web to Superman's foot, and the comic comes to an end with a great shot of them flying through the city as Superman says, seems the least I can do. Shall we start at the Superman Museum? With Spider-Man replying, you're killing me. And that, my friends, wraps up the main story in this new Superman Spider-Man #1 crossover. So far, both of these new DC Marvel crossover stories have been riddled with nostalgia, just a ton of fun. They've used great villains and they've really struck a good tone for me. Kind of a perfect blend between modern and classic comics with a little bit of Saturday morning thrown in there. It's just a great read. And remember, you can only get this comic in print form. So if you want to pick up a first print copy of this book for yourself, make sure to head over to variantcomics.com and grab one. And again, we're going to be covering the second story in this book, which is a team up between Superboy Prime and Black Suit Spider-Man in a separate episode later today. So keep an eye out for that. Beyond that, what did you guys think of this story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Otherwise, we will see you next time when we talk about all things comics.
Yo, dude, that was badass, man. I really like that shit. Oh man, I like the relationship dynamic between Superman and Spider-Man. How they're like, got this like bro, like this super bro vibe between each other and shit. You know what I mean? How they're like, not all like acting all bitchy and just shitting on each other and that shit. On where they really like teamed up to help each other. And I like the little plot and the little scenario that they put together showing, okay, there's not just them two, from two different universes teaming up, with each other, but we're going to also have the antagonist, the Brainiac and Dr. Ock teaming up with each other, going against Superman and Spider-Man. So it's like each of their villains, teaming up with each other and going up against them. And they end up taking them down, and that was tight. That was cool. Seeing Spider-Man push that rubble up off of him, that was like an iconic scene that they like to replay throughout basically damn near all of the Spider-Man iterations. So yeah, oh man, and Dr. Ock, I like how they did Dr. Ock in this. He was cool. Brainiac was cool. So yeah, I'm like, damn. But they managed to pull it off. They managed to defeat him. So, but yeah, because if it wasn't for them, then Earth would have been destroyed by way of Brainiac and Dr. Ock. So they stopped their ass. All right, so yeah, let's go into our next one, man. That was pretty cool. So shout out to Variant Comics. Appreciate it. Let's go into our next one. The next part of the Geek-verse news. Oh, remember to follow the Rumble so you can be alerted for when I go live for Anime Night.
Marvel's new Wolverine is yet still on the loose, but now with us coming back to Wolverine Weapons of Armageddon for issue 2, we learn a bit more about this guy's powers, and it almost seems like Professor Ash was trying to one-up everybody in Weapons Plus. So let's get into it, but first, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so coming back with Tyler Torrance still on the run. And he's a teenage mutant with abilities similar to Logan's, who was taken by a company called Prime Warrior and given adamantium enhancements, which we'll learn more about in a little bit. But with Tyler still on the run, there's a race to see who can find him first. But what we discovered so far is that David Colton, the new Captain America, or better yet, the guy who was supposed to be the new Captain America, busted Tyler out of a Prime Warrior facility when he attacked and bombed the place, so he's the reason Tyler's free. But one of the last things we saw was Wolverine and a woman by the name of Terry O'Barnes, who has a mutant power that allows her to track mutants. They're out here looking for Tyler so they can help him. But of course, Tyler's trail led them here to David's cabin, and David thinks they're trying to lock the kid back up, so he's not having that, because David believes the last thing we need is this company called Prime Warrior to be out here just pumping out super soldiers trying to make another Captain America, let alone creating a weapon who's just extremely dangerous and unhinged, like Frank Simpson, for example. And speaking of Frank, we go to a bit of a flashback here, to a time when Logan was working with the CIA and asked to bring Major Frank Simpson in. But when he did, Professor Ford was highly upset because Frank came in with his face carved up, and Professor Ash, who was Ford's assistant at the time, he tried to tell him that they could heal most of the scarring, only for Professor Ford to snap on Professor Ash and basically tell him like, hey, you're an assistant, I just need you to assist, no more of the commentary. And in Logan's case, Ford told Logan he's going to call the CIA and have them send him to the far reaches of the earth. And Logan was just like, man, that sounds like a plan. But after they left and Logan was still in the room alone with Frank, Logan said a few things here that may have been heard by the big guy. Because in this moment, Logan's like, sorry kid, job's a job. If it's any consolation, I'm done. Tired of doing the dirty work, tired of making killers. Just tired. Going home. Whatever that is now. Hope they make you whole, Frank. And that they aim you towards proper enemies. The bastards and the killers. Hell, one day, they may aim you at me. Lord knows I deserve it. See you around, Frank. And back at the time when Logan walked out of that room, Frank's eyes opened. And those eyes was looking like, yeah, I heard everything you said, Logan, I'm gonna do that. So it's like now when we come back to the present day, at the Prime Warrior facility, where Frank's here checking things out after he was called in, there's a moment here where it's like he's zoned out, and likely thinking of that memory with Logan, amongst other memories, and we see Professor Ash here, who's now a lead professor. But after all these years, he's happy to see Nuke looking healthy. But with Simpson being brought here to take care of Logan amongst their other issues, Professor Ash tells him that the main priority is finding the kid, as well as the box. And now Donaldson, who's leading this whole recovery operation, he was sent by Pruitt because he wants the best men on this to get the job done. So Donaldson, he tells Professor Ash that Nuke's basically a gun and they know how to use him. Because Donaldson, he's the one doing the investigative work. But as it stands, they don't know who bombed the place because that person covered his tracks well. While on the other hand, Logan, who was also here earlier, he didn't cover his tracks so well, which is what allows Donaldson to find Terry O'Barnes' truck, which as we know is not too far from David Colton's cabin. So Donaldson's plan is to head to the truck and attempt to pick up the signal for the box from there. So right away, Professor Ash is like, oh, you'll need me for that. And Donaldson's like, do I? Seems to me you can just give me access to your equipment, Professor. And now Professor Ash, he's not just gonna let these guys go out there and handle it, not without his supervision. Because like he said before, the work he's done on Tyler Torrance, it was not only extremely expensive, but it's also the best work of his career. And as for the box, he knows that thing has the power to change the world. So I imagine the last thing Professor Ash wants to hear is Donaldson giving him a call and talking about, hey man, I found that box, but then I dropped it on my toe, and now I'm beyond Omega level. Oops. Because again, Professor Ash wants to figure out how to duplicate the origin box before anyone just uses up what's inside. So the professor's like, I'm going, and that's that. So Donaldson asks Nuke if he can vouch for the professor, and Nuke just kind of looks over his shoulder like, whatever. More the merrier. And now when we go back to David's cabin, where he still has Terry at gunpoint, Logan's looking at this guy and he's still trying to figure out who he's dealing with. And now we recently just covered David Colton's backstory, where he was selected in the early 2000s to become a new Captain America when the United States was preparing to go back to war. So we know who he is. But in Logan's case, where he's just going off of first impressions and kind of eyeballing this guy, he's like, okay, this dude's got a shield-like cap, he's got a star glowing on his chest, and he's definitely the guy who blew up the Prime Warrior facility. So with David yelling at Logan and telling him to get on his knees, Logan's got to make a decision here. And when David tells him, I swear to God, I'll do it, and Logan's like, maybe you will. I've seen a lot of people die. One more ain't nothing. Then he pops his claws and he's like, 2 more ain't nothing either. And he lets him know, she dies, you die too. And that's guaranteed. But Logan's got to make a quick call, and he ends up calling David's bluff. Because even with him seeing this guy for just seconds, literally, maybe a minute, Logan picks up that this isn't the kind of guy who'd want to squeeze that trigger. When this pops off, Logan notices that this guy's quick. Steve Rogers quick. And he moves like he's military. And that's where Logan realizes, yo, this dude is a Captain America. And then it dawns on him like, dang it, if he is, then I can't let him get to that shield. And that's what Logan focuses on next, by first taking care of David's gun just before he puts his claws between David and his shield. But also what I like about this is how Logan notices, first thing, the star on his chest, secondly, he's moving like a super soldier. But the last thing Logan mentions here is basically how he went to his shield as a last resort. And in Terry's case, she knows exactly who David is, because she says here, you're the guy who's been destroying super soldier sites, stopping them from doing what they once did to you. It's personal, and it makes sense, since you're David Colton, the unknown Captain America. And it makes sense for Terry to know David's story, because she has a long history of either working for the government or working against them. And when she devoted her time to protecting mutants, she made it her mission to learn about all the government secrets that were being kept. And now that things have calmed down, for a moment we head over to another unstable super soldier by way of another flashback with Frank Simpson, aka Nuke. Because while he was a part of Weapons Plus, who for some time liked to test their soldiers out on the wildlife, so Wolverine wasn't the first, but it led to this moment where Frank came across a bear and it didn't end well for either of them. And at the time, Professor Ford had just went off on Professor Ash, because Ash said that Simpson was ready for combat, only for him to come out here and get done like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant. But in Ash's defense, he mentions here, the cybernetic implants that Ford designed, they're ideal for handling firearms, or hand-to-hand combat with soldiers, not for bears and not for wolves. And that's where Professor Ford just smacked him, because he wants Ash to take this cutting-edge technology and make killing machines. End of story. And over time, we'll see how these crazy flashbacks have brought us to the point of what's going on now. But at this point in the present day, it's here where Professor Ash, Donaldson, and Nuke have made their way to Terry's truck. And as Donaldson is filling in the professor on who Terry L. Barnes is, he confirms something she was suspicious of in the last issue, when she mentioned how she had trouble tracking Tyler because his mutant gene was being suppressed somehow. And that's exactly what was going on. And in fact, Donaldson made that suggestion to the professor to do so, because he knew Terry was working against them for some time. So now with the professor being filled in, he knows they've got a clock ticking, but they might be able to use this to their advantage, because his suppression treatment is going to be wearing off soon, thanks to Tyler's regenerative abilities. But as soon as his mutant gene becomes detectable again, that'll allow Terry to track him. And from there, they can just follow her straight to him. But then it's here where they notice Mr. Simpson's gone missing. And now, back over with Terry, David, and Logan, they spend some time here talking about David's past and getting better acquainted with him, all of which going back to what we covered in our Secret Wars. But this leads to David saying that the things they're mentioning, like Iraq, Afghanistan, and Latveria, all of that was a long time ago. And then he tells them, the only thing bright about me is this Stark Tech where my heart used to be. Because that was one of the drawbacks to the version of the super serum that he was given. It literally tore his heart to shreds. And now it comes to the point where David's done talking about himself. So Terry asks him about Tyler, because her and Logan are looking for this kid and they need to know what they're getting into. So David tells them here the kid has regenerative abilities. So Prime Warrior went all in, knowing he would survive. Sounds familiar. Then he says they developed an adamantium solution infused with pico technology that could be manipulated while retaining its intense structure. Mind control fluid, indestructible metal. And he looks at Logan and says, those claws you have, imagine them able to travel across the room to kill someone while your body is covered in the metal, seeping out through your skin. Incredibly painful, incredibly dangerous. And this really just sums up what all this has come to for David, because when he sees a company like Prime Warrior pulling off this we have weapons plus at home type situation, he's like, these are just psychopaths, ruining lives, making weapons that they can aim at other psychopaths, while the rest of them just get caught in the crossfire. And for a really brief moment, you have both Logan and Terry who just kind of drop their heads and say nothing. And I imagine it's because they both helped psychopaths in the past, with Terry turning in Logan and Logan turning in Nuke. And that's not to brush over the fact that both Logan and David are weapons themselves, because Logan takes the time to make the same point here that he made with Terry before. And that's the fact that they can now choose for themselves who or what they're going to be aimed at, which right there makes Donaldson's comment about Nuke from earlier even crazier. But their focus for now is finding Tyler before Prime Warrior does. And then boom, it's right here where Terry is able to start tracking Tyler again. In his situation, we pick up just outside of a secondhand shop, because as they're closing up, one of the people leaving, this dude steps around the corner to toss some clothes, only to find Tyler back there looking for a new fit. And I imagine these are the clothes that just weren't good enough for them to sell. And Tyler, he's at the point he just needs something. And when this guy sees him, Tyler's just like, whoa, don't say anything. And he just flips out here, and mainly just out of panic and what I imagine is the internal conflict between, hey, no witnesses, and Tyler's true self who doesn't want to hurt this guy. And now fortunately, Tyler's able to reel it in, grab a couple things and get out of there without taking this dude's life. But the bottom line is Tyler is scared. and very dangerous. Because as it stands, the kid's in survival mode. And in Tyler's case, in a way, this story's given us this comparison of possible outcomes between Nuke, Logan, and David, because in a lot of ways it's comparing where Tyler's been and teasing where he may end up down the line, with us knowing how things turned out for Nuke, Logan, and David. And that continues when we go back to Nuke, who had wandered off, to the point where he comes across this huge bear, similar to the one that he ran into years ago that mistook him for Leonardo DiCaprio. But this time around, when Nuke sees this bear, he just takes a white pill. So instead of attacking this bear or provoking it to attack him, he shows that he's not a threat and it walks away. But then this goes to another flashback where Professor Ford was telling Nuke, "You've done well, but you can do better. My colleague and I want to be able to tap into your true self, to be the warrior you were born to be." And that's where he introduces Nuke to the whole pill system that was designed to adjust his adrenaline. And now this is something we've talked about a number of times before, and I almost feel like the blue pill and the white pill, they've been swapped as far as what they do when Nuke takes them. But Professor Ford goes on to explain here that the white pills are for calming Nuke down and the blue are for maintaining a normal state. And as he's explaining this, he's pouring the pills in his hand. He's like, "In the red pill, wait a minute, where's the red pill?" So of course he goes off on Ash again, asking him where's it at. But when Professor Ford turns around to ask Ash about it, he finds that Ash is much further behind him than he was before. And matter of fact, he's not even in the same room. And now this leads to a crazy moment because no words are exchanged. Not between Ash and the professor, at least. Because after the professor looks back, he turns back around, looks at Nuke, and he's just like, "No, no, no, no." And yeah, needless to say, things got ugly. But coming back to the current day, Nuke gets radioed by Donaldson. He's like, "Hey, where you at?" And Nuke tells them here that he thought he saw them. And that's where he's told, "Hey, your bionic eyes are no match for satellites." And that's where he's given the coordinates of where to head to. And now as Terry's tracking Tyler, she gets just enough to know that the kid is head north, but before her and Logan go, she tells Colton that they got room for one more, and since he's already encountered the kid, it would be a huge help if he could come. But as far as Colton is concerned, he's not ready to get back into the world yet. And in fact, after all this, he's ready to go further off the grid. So Logan tells him here, "I get it. You can say it's for your mission, but you and I know that's just the grand excuse. The things we've done, being around people, around life, it feels wrong, like you want to claw your own skin off. But who we are just means we know how to save people, to help them. You help people, and they heal you. Make it so you can have a place in the world again. You don't need to be Captain America, but this kid needs us, Colton." And now Colton, he's listening, but at the same time, he's also checking out these security cameras. And as it stands on one of his cameras, he sees a buff neck incoming. And what follows is enough for him to tell Logan and Terry to get down, just before Nuke booms an opening in the side of the cabin, followed by multiple shots, which Logan catches many of. But fortunately, David's able to flip a table to cover himself and Terry. So the two of these guys head outside, and Logan tells Terry to stay inside and stay low. And right away, both Logan and David, they're already working together like soldiers. It's like a switch for them. Because Logan asks David that they should flank whoever this is, and David tells him that they should stick together and cover each other's backs. And now as soon as Nuke yells out, "Logan, come out and fight me!" Logan's basically like, "Man, I already know that voice." When David asks him, "Who is it?" Logan tells him a nut job named Nuke. And he goes on to tell David the way they need to handle him. Because Nuke loves his guns, so they got to get in close and catch him from the side. But before they get the chance to, Nuke decides that Logan is taking too long to respond. Because right here, Nuke's like, "No, fine by me, freak. I'll beat the hell out of your smoking bones if I have to." And everybody here already knows what that means. This dude's about to RPG the cabin. And that is precisely what he does, with Terry inside. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to show it some love, drop a like, and pour out a little something for Terry, who should have put it in reverse. Because Nuke's out here treating this cabin like it belonged to somebody's grandma. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.
Yeah, man. So shit, that was crazy, man. That was something else, dude. This motherfucker's no joke. But shout out to our boy Doseville Comics. All right, we're gonna be rolling into our next video. Well, that was a really good one. I'm about to check that one out too. My boy got a lot of good replay content too, boy. A lot of content that has a lot of replay value, as I should say. So yeah. All right, here we go. Here's our next one. Yep, and that's our boy Dope Spill Comics. So yeah, shout out to him. Salute.
The best thing about anime is how it evolves. If we're talking about mecha anime, then the OG anime fans will think about Mobile Suit Gundam, and even though it was an exemplary show, mecha anime has since evolved. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about 10 new-gen mecha anime that are better than Gundam because of their stunning visuals and complex storylines. If you're a longtime mecha fan looking for a new anime to watch, then stick with us to the end. You might just find your new favorite binge. Let's get into it. 86, 2021. Adapted from a popular light novel series written by Asato Asato, 86 is an anime released in 2021 that was produced by AI Pictures and directed by Toshimasa Ishii. This anime has 23 episodes. The story takes place in the Republic of San Magnolia, a nation that fights its wars using completely autonomous drones. According to the government, no human soldiers are dying in the conflict against the enemy machines known as the Legion. However, this is a lie. The Republic secretly forces a marginalized group known as the 86 to pilot the combat units and fight on the front lines. These soldiers are treated as expendable and not even counted as human citizens. Why? Because they don't have silver hair and blue eyes like all of the other citizens. The adults are all basically dead, so this is a group of teenagers forced to pilot these vehicles. The narrative follows two characters primarily, Shine Shin Nozin, the calm and deadly leader of the Spearhead Squadron, and Vladilena Lena Milize, a young military officer assigned to command them from the safety of the capital. Over time, Lena begins to question the system she serves, while Shin and his squad continue fighting in a war that feels increasingly hopeless. The soldiers pilot small spider-like combat vehicles called juggernauts. These machines move quickly across the battlefield, and the show emphasizes realistic military fights. One of the biggest strengths of 86 is its production quality, as the anime blends traditional 2D character animation with CGI for the mechanical units. The battle sequences highlight the speed and agility of the juggernauts. I think this is honestly one of the best animated mecha shows in history. The story isn't just about the war, but also the racial discrimination the 86 face. Gargantia on the Verdurous Planet, 2013. If you want to watch an anime with some heavy world building and complex themes, then you have to watch Gargantia on the Verdurous Planet. Released in 2013, Gargantia was produced by Production IG and directed by Kazuya Murata. In just 13 episodes, it tells the story of Leto, a young soldier from a distant future where humanity has spread across space and is locked in an endless war against a mysterious alien species called the Hideow. Leto pilots a powerful humanoid combat machine known as Chamber and fights as part of the Galactic Alliance of Humankind. During one intense battle, however, he's separated from his fleet and transported through a wormhole. When Leto regains consciousness, he discovers that he's arrived on Earth, but not the one he read about in his history books. Most of the planet is covered by water, and humans survive by living on massive floating fleets made of connected ships. Leto ends up on one such fleet, called Gargantia, where the people live relatively simple and peaceful lives. Having grown up in a rigid, militaristic society where everything is controlled by orders, Leto struggles to understand the lifestyle of the Gargantia residents. They value cooperation and freedom, concepts that are completely foreign to them. The mecha aspect of the anime centers on Chamber, Leto's highly advanced combat machine, which is equipped with advanced AI and is like a partner to Leto, advising him on the best course of action. This isn't a series that constantly relies on mecha battles, but since the anime is short, it focuses more on the narratives and the deeper philosophical questions about humanity. I went into it expecting a mecha anime, but it turned out to be a slice-of-life anime. However, there is a good amount of mecha battles in the last episodes of the show. Kuro Makuro, 2016. If you've ever wondered whether sci-fi can be blended with historical drama, then Kuro Makuro might be your answer. Produced to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the studio PA Works, the series combines large-scale robot battles with a story that connects Japan's feudal past to a futuristic alien conflict. Directed by Tensai Okamura, this 26-episode anime takes place in modern-day Japan, where a mysterious artifact known as the Black Relic was discovered decades earlier during the construction of a dam in Toyama Prefecture. This artifact led to the creation of the United Nations Kurobe Research Institute, a facility dedicated to studying the strange object and the technology surrounding it. Everything changes when aliens suddenly arrive on Earth, launching attacks using their mecha. During the chaos, a teenage girl named Yukina Shirahane accidentally activates the Black Relic, releasing a mysterious young man named Kenosuke Tokisada Oma. Kenosuke turns out to be a samurai from the Sengoku period who had been sealed inside the relic centuries ago. Kenosuke realizes that the alien invaders are the same ones he fought 450 years ago. Determined to protect the world and to find his lost master's daughter, he joins the fight against the invaders. By combining alien invasions with the perspective of samurai from the Sengoku era, this series creates a story that feels both fresh and entertaining. We like the animation as well as the characters, and there's little to complain about here, except for the ending, which leaves us with a cliffhanger, but sadly, there's been no announcement of a second season. Promare 2019. Directed by Hiroyuki Imaishi and produced by Studio Trigger, this film takes place in a futuristic world where the Burnish suddenly appear. The Burnish are people who possess the ability to control flames, and their emergence leads to massive destruction across the world. Because of the chaos they cause, society begins to fear and persecute them. 30 years later, a new city called Promepolis has been established under the leadership of the powerful governor Cray Forsyth. The city is protected by an elite firefighting force known as Burning Rescue, which uses giant mechanized vehicles designed specifically to battle large-scale fire disasters and Burnish attacks. The protagonist, Gallo Thymos, is an energetic and passionate member of Burning Rescue who idolizes Cray. During one mission, he encounters Leo Focia, the charismatic leader of a Burnish resistance group called Mad Burnish. As Gallo continues fighting against the Burnish, he gradually uncovers shocking truths about their existence and the real motives behind the government's actions. We found Promare to be one of the most entertaining anime films we've seen in recent times, mostly because of its colorful and bold visuals. The characters were good, especially Gallo and Leo, who have strong personalities that make their rivalry and evolving relationship exciting to watch. Aldnoah Zero 2014. Aldnoah Zero, directed by A. Aoki and produced by AI Pictures, was a 24-episode anime which takes place in a future where humanity has discovered advanced alien technology on Mars known as the Aldnoah energy source. This discovery leads to the rise of the Verse Empire, a powerful Martian civilization that believes itself superior to the people of Earth. Over time, tensions between Earth and Mars grow, eventually leading to a devastating war. Years later, a fragile peace exists between the two sides. However, everything changes when Asalem Verse Elugia, a princess of the Verse Empire, visits Earth as a diplomatic ambassador. During her visit, a terrorist attack appears to be an assassination attempt on her, which the Martian Knights use as an excuse to launch a full-scale invasion of Earth. The story primarily follows two young characters caught in this conflict. Inaho Kaizuka is a calm and analytical student from Earth who becomes a soldier during the invasion, while Slain Troyard is an Earthborn individual who serves the Martian nobility. As the war intensifies, the two characters end up on opposite sides of the battlefield, creating a complex rivalry shaped by loyalty, ideology, and personal struggle. The mecha combat in Aldnoah Zero plays a central role in the story. The Martian forces possess extremely advanced machines known as cataprocts, which are powered by the mysterious Aldnoah technology. Each of these machines has unique abilities, making them incredibly difficult for Earth's military forces to defeat. We enjoyed the way the series portrays the conflict between Earth and Mars. Both sides have characters with understandable motivations, which makes the war feel more complex than a simple good versus evil story. Some characters feel underdeveloped, and certain story developments can feel abrupt, but despite that, the overall tension and atmosphere keep this narrative extremely engaging. Darling in the Fran XX 2018. Darling in the Fran XX was produced through a collaboration between Studio Trigger and A1 Pictures. This 24-episode anime takes place in a distant future where humanity lives in massive mobile cities called plantations. These cities are protected by artificially created child soldiers who pilot giant robots known as Fran XX
to fight mysterious creatures called klaxosaurs. The children are raised in special facilities and trained from birth to become pilots, living isolated from the adults and the rest of the world. The narrative centers on Hiro, a former prodigy pilot who has lost his ability to synchronize with a partner. His life changes when he meets 02, a mysterious and rebellious pilot with horns and a reputation for being extremely dangerous. Despite the risks, Hiro becomes her partner and begins piloting a Fran XX with her. As the series progresses, the relationship between Hiro and 02 becomes the emotional core of the story. At the same time, the anime slowly reveals the secrets behind the klaxosaurs and the hidden truth about the society controlling the children. It's a good coming-of-age anime where the characters are trying to understand themselves and the society they live in. The series did feel a little rushed towards the end, especially the last 9 episodes, and that ending still leaves us with a lot of questions. SSSS Gridman 2018. If you want to watch a series with a mix of mecha and monsters, this might be the one for you. Produced by Studio Trigger, SSSS Gridman serves as a tribute to the 1993 tokusatsu series Gridman the Hyper Agent. This 12-episode anime begins when a high school student named Yuta Hibiki wakes up with complete amnesia. While trying to figure out who he is, he discovers an old computer in an electronics shop where a mysterious digital entity named Gridman appears on the screen. Gridman tells Yuta that he has a mission, but Yuta can't remember what it is. Soon after, giant monsters called kaiju begin attacking the city. When this happens, Yuta merges with Gridman and transforms into a massive hero capable of fighting the monsters. With the help of his friends Sho Utsumi and Rika Takarada, Yuta defends the city from these attacks. However, it's clear that something strange is happening because after every battle, the destruction caused by the kaiju disappears and the city resets as if nothing ever happened. As Yuta and his friends investigate these strange events, they begin to uncover the hidden truth behind the kaiju and the world they live in. Gridman himself functions similarly to a giant robot hero, battling enormous monsters in dramatic citywide confrontations. In addition to Gridman, the series introduces several support machines known as assist weapons. These mechanical units can combine with Gridman to form different armored configurations, increasing his strength and allowing him to adapt to different kaiju threats. We thought this would be a straightforward monster fighting series, but it starts to get more and more complex as the plot moves forward. We really enjoyed how the show slowly starts revealing the mystery behind the world while also showing awesome mecha battles. Brave Bang Bravern 2024. Directed by Masami Obari and produced by Cygames Pictures, this 12-episode story begins with a large-scale alien invasion threatening the Earth. Military forces from around the world struggle to fight back against mysterious mechanical enemies known as death drives. Amid the chaos, 2 soldiers from different countries meet on the battlefield. Isami Eo, a pilot from Japan's Ground Self-Defense Force, and Lewis Smith, a skilled U.S. military pilot, and they form an unusual alliance as humanity tries to resist the alien attack. However, the situation takes an unexpected turn when a powerful talking robot named Bravern suddenly appears. Unlike ordinary military machines, Bravern is a heroic superbot with its own personality and a dramatic sense of justice. Bravern chooses Isami as the only pilot he'll accept. As the series progresses, the mystery behind Bravern, the alien invaders, and the connection between the main characters gradually unfolds. We actually found Brave Bang Bravern to be extremely entertaining. At first, we thought the series would be a serious military sci-fi story about humanity fighting alien invaders, but the moment Bravern appears, the tone shifts completely and the show becomes fun and outrageous. That said, the story can feel a bit rushed at times, especially since the entire narrative unfolds in just 12 episodes. Knights of Sidonia 2014. Based on the manga by Tsutomu Nihei, Knights of Sidonia is produced by Polygon Pictures. This 24-episode anime presents a future where humanity is on the brink of extinction and must fight for survival against mysterious alien creatures. The story takes place far in the future after Earth's been destroyed by a powerful alien species known as the Guana. The remnants of humanity escape into space in massive colony ships. One of these ships is Sidonia, a gigantic vessel that travels endlessly through space while searching for a new home. The main protagonist is Nagate Tanikaze, a young man who's lived most of his life in the hidden lower levels of Sidonia. Raised in isolation by his grandfather, Nagate grows up with very little knowledge of the world outside his underground home. However, his life changes when he's discovered by the authorities and recruited into Sidonia's military forces. Nagate becomes a pilot of a powerful humanoid combat machine used to defend the ship from Guana attacks. As the Guana continue to threaten humanity's survival, Nagate and the other pilots must constantly fight to protect Cydonia and its population. Throughout the series, the story explores not just the dangers of space warfare, but also the social structure and the culture that develops aboard the ship. In terms of animation, the character movements appear slightly stiff, but the CGI works very well during the space battles. It also uses a lot of dark lighting and muted colors to emphasize the lonely environment of space. Most of all, we enjoyed the world building, especially how society aboard Cydonia has developed strange traditions and technologies in order to survive. Knights of Cydonia isn't just another sci-fi anime, but also a survival horror that feels rather unsettling. Star Driver 2010. If you combine a high school drama and giant robot battles, then you get Star Driver. Released in 2010, this was produced by Bones and directed by Takuya Igarashi. This 25-episode series takes place on the fictional Southern Cross Isle, a peaceful island where mysterious secrets lie hidden beneath the surface. The narrative begins when a young boy named Takuro Tsunashi swims ashore after arriving from the mainland. Shortly after enrolling at the local high school, Takuro quickly becomes popular for his bright personality and confident attitude. However, the island hides a strange underground world connected to powerful machines called Cybodies. These mechs exist in a mysterious alternate dimension known as Zero Time, where they can only be activated under certain conditions. A secret organization called the Glittering Crux Brigade seeks to control these machines to break their seals and unleash their true powers. Takuro reveals that he is able to pilot a Cybody known as Tauburn, which he uses to battle members of the Glittering Crux Brigade whenever they attempt to unleash their own mechs. We actually found Star Driver to be one of the most visually striking mecha anime we've seen. The colorful aesthetic of the show gives it a vibrant energy that keeps it visually engaging. The story can sometimes feel too mysterious to the point that it becomes confusing. One problem with the show is that some plot arcs are left open to interpretation, which leaves us with more questions than answers. This brings us to the end of our list of anime that are just as good as Gundam. What makes these shows special is how they push the mecha genre in completely different directions. They're not just about cool robot battles, they also explore themes from genres like coming of age, slice of life, and even historical dramas. Let us know your favorite anime from this list in the comments down below, or if you have any more recommendations like this, please let us know that too. If you enjoyed this content, maybe consider leaving a like and subscribe. Otherwise, thanks for sticking with us right to the end of this one. We hope to see you next time, but until then, stay safe and stay marvelous.
Thank you guys over there, the Marvelous team, the Marvelous Videos and Anime team. Thank y'all for putting that together. Shout out to you guys, bro. Appreciate y'all, man. Because I'm definitely going to be taking notes. I have, yeah, I took notes. I hope y'all did, because yeah, I am. Because there's some mecha animes that I haven't seen yet, so I'm definitely going to be checking that out. Yes, there's especially that last one. The star with one of them was a Star Driver in that last one, definitely. Where where you said like the visual aesthetics, I mean, just that keen, to where it's just so captivating. And yeah, I like when they do that type of thing in within anime. So I like when they add that kind of art, But I don't like stories too that sometimes become a little too mysterious to where it becomes a little confusing. That's I believe that's a lot of people's thoughts when it comes to the whole cyber world. When it comes to animes like Ghost in the Shell, the whole philosophies within it, and it makes your mind, just leaves your mind in wonder, and it's neither bad nor is it extremely good. It's kind of good to a degree because it just it births creativity through that, of art, ideas of art. Once you analyze like those the stories of philosophies within the Ghost in the Shell series, and there's still some little bit of Ghost in the Shell content that need to uh I need to catch back up with, man. That I need to check out that I haven't seen, and some that I want to just check out for nostalgia purposes. So yeah, all right, and yeah, shout out to him. I'm definitely taking the list of the animes from that list that I want to see So yeah, shout out to you. I really appreciate that. Thank y'all. So, all right, here we go to our next one.
Hell. It's the one word everyone hates and the one place that nobody wants to go. For as long as humanity has existed, so has some version of hell, and from a moral standpoint, it makes sense, right? What gives life meaning if the goody two-shoes of this world don't go to heaven and the sinners and criminals don't end up burning in hellfire? But in most religions and mythologies, hell is an actual place. In Berserk, hell is as abstract as that MC Escher lithograph Miura uses as the setting for the God Hand's debut. So what exactly is the Vortex of Souls? How was it created? And what is its connection to some of the most evil characters in this story? We're going to be tackling all those questions and more in this video, so stick with us till the end for all the answers to your questions. Let's get into it. What is the Vortex of Souls? How was it made? As is the case with many of the most important concepts in Berserk, the Vortex of Souls made its debut during the Black Swordsman arc. To be more specific, it made its first appearance in the final chapter of that arc, which itself was the third chapter to ever feature the God Hand. Now, the God Hand had been positioned as the main antagonists of the series since the very beginning. It was the first chapter of Berserk where we saw Guts hunting an apostle, not because he was trying to exterminate demons from the world, that was just a fun bonus. His real goal was to find the God Hand so he could kill them, and over the course of the next 3 chapters, Miura drip-fed us details about who they were and why Guts hated them so much. Turns out, the God Hand are demonic angels, there are 5 of them, they gave Guts his brand of sacrifice, and they use a strange stone with a misshapen face carved into it to turn human beings into demonic thralls. Guts was pursuing the strategy of interrogating foot soldiers to get to their generals, and that's how he ended up finding the God Hand in the castle of the Slug Count. Don't worry, we'll address the stone and the thralls in the next segment because this video wouldn't be complete otherwise, but that's kind of the gist of the Black Swordsman arc's premise. Any discussion about demons and demonkind could not be complete without a mention of hell, because centuries of religious teachings and humanity's obsession with mythology have taught us that hell is where demons reside. The fact that apostles were active in the human world was likely supposed to indicate the hard fantasy setting of Berserk in those initial days before Miura pivoted to a soft fantasy approach, but the basic concept of demons and their connection to hell has been so prevalent throughout human history that it's become an archetype. And what's fascinating about Berserk's hell is that it was created because of that word, archetype. To understand what we mean by that, we first have to establish how Berserk's hell is different from others because it's quite unique and singular. In most world religions and myths, hell is a place created by deities to punish the sinful. It's a place where the souls of those who have committed various sins descend to, and depending on which version of hell we're looking at, the nature of their sentence differs. In religions that perceive the soul as an entity that reincarnates itself over the course of various life cycles, the damned don't remain in hell in perpetuity. For instance, in Hinduism, there can be as many as 25 levels of hell, and the soul of the sinful serves its sentence based on the crimes it's committed in their current incarnation. The punishments can range from being boiled in hot oil to climbing a specific spiked tree, but because Hinduism is a religion that doesn't believe in absolutes, the sentenced soul will eventually find salvation. After serving its time, the punished soul ascends to Svarga, aka heaven, where it stays until it's time to be reincarnated, at which point their corporeal forms are decided by their karma. You can come back to Earth as a cockroach, or a flower, or a king in your next lifetime or yuga. By contrast, the Christian version of hell believes in eternal damnation, and that's probably why there were so many strict religious orders in the Christian world which emphasized chastity and moral purity as the righteous way of life. The actual location of hell varies from culture to culture. In Greek mythology, for instance, Hades is believed to be hell, but that isn't technically accurate. Hades is the underworld, which also has Elysium in it, the paradise city where the souls of Greek heroes live out their afterlives in relative peace and contentment. The precise location of hell within Hades would be Tartarus, where the most sinful are punished eternally unless they learn the true meaning of repentance. This is where guys like Sisyphus, who killed guests and travelers he'd extended hospitality to, and Tantalus, who fed a god his own son, live in eternal damnation. In Sikhism, the concepts of emotional attachment and doubt are perceived as hellish, which suggests that one does not have to die to go to hell. One can dwell in hell as they live. Even the very nature of hell differs depending on which faith you're looking at. Allah pre-baked the oven that is Jahannam for 3,000 years, turning its its flames from red hot to white hot to pitch black so that infidels and heretics might learn the consequences of defying him. Those Vikings who didn't die in glorious battle spend their afterlife in the ice-cold realm of Helheim, where Hell's eagle produces winds so cold they cut through the flesh of the damned with every flap of its wings. But you know what all of these versions of Hell have in common? It's the fact that they're places created by deities, and when sinful souls are sent down there, they retain a sense of individuality, because how else will you decide whom to punish, how to punish them, and what duration of time will they spend getting punished? But in Berserk, that's not the case. Berserk's Hell is a single swirling mass of dead spirits that writhe within a torrent for all eternity. That's the true nature of the Vortex of Souls. It's a place of intense, extreme, negative thoughts and emotions where the souls of those fated to get entangled in causality's demonic affairs end up. Everyone that's in the Vortex was once an individual human being, but after becoming a part of it, they lose that individuality and are condemned to spinning around in that infernal vortex until the end of time. That's what makes Berserk's Hell so scary, because it's not a place where you're punished for your sins in a sensible way. It's a meaningless death spiral where all is undefined, and that includes you. Yours is one soul out of countless others, and there's no concept of purgatory in this world. You can't escape this vortex no matter how much you want to, and to us, that's way worse than being burnt alive or getting stabbed by demons all day. But the worst thing about the Vortex of Souls is that it wasn't created by a god, it was created by humans. You see, the astral world of Berserk is a dimension that overlaps the physical world, but it's not like a dimension from a sci-fi story. In science fiction, dimensions already exist and collide with other dimensions through things like portals that use either real or pseudoscience to make it happen. The astral world, its many layers, and all of its inhabitants exist because of one reason: humanity wanted them to exist. All spiritual entities and locations in Berserk were born from the collective consciousness of humans. Humanity had the power to bring spirits to life because they collectively believed in their existence. That's exactly what the creator of Berserk's Hell tells us in the deleted chapter 83, and it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. The collective consciousness exists independent of individual consciousness. Every individual's perception and experience of life is unique to their individual selves, but there are some things that individuals acknowledge and recognize almost instinctually, and that's where the collective consciousness comes into play. You don't have to explain what the man in the tower means to someone. They already know that you're talking about a wizard-like figure or someone in a position of authority. You don't need to explain what a damsel in distress is, because that's something nearly all of humanity has some kind of reference point for. These archetypal roles and beliefs are essentially the reason the astral world exists, and humanity came up with them to create reasonable explanations for their existence in the first place. That's precisely why the idea of evil, which is the closest thing to Satan in Berserk, exists too. It tells us that humans desired reasons for their suffering, reasons for committing sinful acts despite knowing that they were sinful, and that's how the idea of evil and the depths within which it dwells were born. To make a long story short, Berserk's Hell is only a thing because humans kinda wanted it to be, and since the collective consciousness exists independent of the individual, it cannot be unwished out of existence. So, now that you know what the Vortex of Souls is and how it came into being, let's talk about who actually ends up in it. Who ends up in the Vortex of Souls? How is it connected to apostles and the God Hand? Considering the Vortex is essentially Berserk's Hell, it's bound to be populated by people who have committed crimes. But crime isn't the primary deciding factor when it comes to becoming a resident of Hell. That would be karma, since karmic cycles are a huge part of Berserk. In the Black Swordsman arc, when the God Hand summoned the Abyss's surface and the Vortex reached out to grab hold of Slugcount's soul, we noticed that Vargas was a part of it. Now, Vargas is a guy who's definitely done some questionable stuff. He was the primary physician of the Slugcount for several years, and while becoming an apostle definitely made the Count an outright evil entity, he wasn't a peachy human being before his demonic rebirth. The Count was an aggressive inquisitor who adhered to his faith fanatically and pursued heretics with the kind of zeal you'd expect from a fanatic. Because he employed Vargas and he liked to use extreme methods to extract confessions, Vargas was complicit in at least some of his morally questionable judgments. But Vargas himself was a morally questionable man, because when we took a peek inside his lab, we saw that he had an elf preserved in a jar as though he had experimented on it before. Experimentation on animals is pretty questionable already, but to do so with an elf, a sentient creature that symbolizes moral purity in Berserk, well, that must have crossed some sort of karmic line. And though Vargas has a sympathetic backstory, considering his wife and child were defiled and devoured by the Count after he became an apostle in front of Vargas's eyes, that doesn't mean it gave him a karmic clean sheet. The only reason Vargas helped Guts escape the Count's guards was because he thought that this swordsman garbed in black could be the one to kill the demon and avenge avenge his family. Vargas held on to that belief right up until his death because, in helping Guts, he exposed himself to the Count. He was dragged out in front of the entire city for his execution, and even as he died, Vargas cried out to Guts to avenge him and all the others the Count's gluttony had gotten to, and this was probably the moment that sealed the deal for his afterlife. Vargas could have been a good man before he encountered demons, but after what the Count did to him, he lived his life for revenge. In that way, he's just like Guts, who's also destined for the Vortex. The only difference is that Vargas doesn't bear the brand of sacrifice. We'll get to why that symbol matters in just a moment, but before we do, we want to address a second possibility. Vargas could have also ended up in the Vortex because, like the God Hand itself states, the Vortex attracts all those who get caught up in the affairs of demonkind. That means that any casualty caused by the actions of a demon, whether they personally killed them or not, is bound to end up in the Vortex. And considering Vargas was executed by the Slug Count, his soul definitely fits that description. So now that we've discussed how a regular person can end up in Berserk's Hell, let's talk about those who are specifically targeted for Hell, because there is a distinction. Everything we've said so far encapsulates a more indirect way of ending up in Hell. Sins, direct or indirect involvement with demons, and the balance of a person's karmic account are the primary factors at play. But there is a more direct pipeline to hell as well, and that's by being involved with the Invocation of Doom. This is the ritual that gives a person the brand of sacrifice. It's also the ritual that creates apostles through the use of Behelites and God Hand members through the Crimson Behelit. All of them are intrinsically bound to the Vortex of Souls via the threads of causality, which are woven by the idea of evil, so let's get into what all of this means. Like we mentioned in the previous segment, Berserk's Hell came into existence because humans desired it to exist. This was also the case for the idea of evil, which serves as the unseen antagonist of the series. Though the idea's canon status is unconfirmed as of right now, we're confident in saying that the idea is real because the story wouldn't make as much sense without it. In Chapter 82, right before Griffith meets it on his path to becoming a God Hand member, the idea speaks to him. On his way down to Hell, Griffith notices that droplets that look like tears are floating past him, and when he pays close attention to him, he realizes that they're Behelites. Then, the idea tells him that Behelites are primed droplets that have spilled over from this sea to eternity, a summons to the other world, and it all starts to make sense. See, up until this moment, we'd assumed that Behelites were keys constructed by some sort of hellish guild of dwarves working away at forges, bellowing with hellfire in the abyss. But when the idea of evil claimed ownership of them, we realized that they're fashioned within hell itself. Then, Chapter 83 takes place, and it's revealed that the idea is not just the creator of Behelites, it's the creator of the God Hand, the Apostles, and the very concept of fate that brought Griffith to its shores. And the idea exists within the Vortex of Souls, for we see its massive beating heart form in the Eye of the Storm. All of this might be confusing to hear, and we wouldn't blame you guys for being confused. It took us like 6 readings of Berserk to finally get this straight, but now we have, so we'll share our knowledge with you. In the Black Swordsman arc, the Count activates his Behelit when his blood and his deep desire to continue living without the suffering he was experiencing touched the accursed stone. These made a portal to the depths of the astral world, descend on his castle, and summon the God Hand. Then, while they were giving a speech to the Count about how he can't sacrifice Guts to reincarnate himself a second time, they explained that only someone whom the Count considers a part of his own soul can become a viable sacrifice. That someone was identified as his daughter Teresia. If he chose to give her up, a fissure would open in the Count's heart through which the power of evil would flow, and he could finally cut off that last bit of humanity left within him, which was the love he had for her as a father. The Count even initially thought about going through with their demands, because the God Hand threatened to send him to hell instead, but then he heard Teresia's frightened cries. At that moment, he was reminded of a father's primary duty, protecting their child at all costs. So he rejected the God Hand's offer in what was left of his heart. This canceled the Invocation of Doom, and as soon as that happened, the Vortex of Souls climbed out of the abyss, dragged the Count's soul to hell, and left his physical body on the physical plane. It tried doing the same to Guts because any person marked with the brand of sacrifice is also cursed to end up in hell as a sacrificial offering that will power demonkind. That's what the Invocation of Doom is all about. It's a method by which the God Hand marks sacrifices for the Vortex, and that sacrificial ritual is completed when the person who marked them devours their flesh and soul upon their reincarnation. When the Count was reborn as an apostle, he did so by sacrificing his wife, whom he ate immediately after becoming a monster slug. This sent her soul to the Vortex through the fissure in his heart, and it, in turn, powered his body as an apostle. Guts' case is different because he was sacrificed during the making of a God Hand member, and God Hand members don't eat sacrifices themselves. They consume sacrificial offerings through the apostles that attend their eclipses, which was evidenced by the fact that Griffith felt his fallen comrades' souls pierce through his own on his way to meet the idea of evil. And the reason Guts is an outlier among outliers is because he was rescued from the eclipse by Skull Knight. As a bearer of the brand of sacrifice, his flesh and soul technically belong to Hell now, and he's been hanging on to the physical world by the grit of his teeth and the weight of his sword. If he had been killed during the eclipse, he'd be right beside Vargas today, with neither of them knowing who they were anymore, for that's the nature of Berserk's hell. And to close out this segment about the Vortex being the primary source of power for apostles in the God Hand, we need to point out that the God Hand's members' current forms were fashioned for them with the souls of the Vortex, which we saw in chapter 83 when Griffith used a bunch of them to give himself wings. This is what the God Hand meant when they said that all those who get caught up in demonic affairs eventually end up in hell. They know because that's how they got their powers as well as their current forms. Berserk's hell is nothing more than a gigantic power battery for its demons, and once a demon's life runs out, their soul charge is returned to the source, as seen with both Slugcount and Wild. So now that you know about these functional details about the Vortex, let's answer the one question that no one's asked, but everyone probably wants the answer to, which is, will hell cease to exist? How Berserk's endgame could change the astral world itself. This is something we deliberately omitted from the previous section, but there's actually a third path to filling up the Vortex of Souls, and it's one Griffith's been pursuing aggressively as of late. This path involves a God Hand member directly sending the souls of those in their vicinity to the Vortex. If you take a close look at the manga, you'll see that around the midway point of the Millennium Falcon arc, Griffith starts performing a ceremony for the soldiers that have died in his service. He lets their family members get one last conversation with them before he sends their souls to a place where he claims they will all become one. This place is most definitely the Vortex of Souls because, as we established earlier in this video, it's a domain where all individuality is lost in that swirling torrent. Griffith's been reaping souls like he's the Grim Reaper himself, and in a way that makes sense. The God Hand have been the source of much of the death and destruction that the Berserk-verse has been suffering through for a while now, and all of it couldn't have been just because, right? There needs to be some purpose, some direction for it all, and that purpose revealed itself when Griffith spoke about sending souls to a place where they become one. They've been collecting as much energy as they possibly can to cause a massive astral event, and that event presumably was the Great Roar of the astral world. This world-altering situation, where Griffith cleaved open the body of Shiva Ganishka with a sword stroke from Skull Knight's Sword of Actuation, set the stage for Berserk's endgame because it did something that was undone 1,000 years ago. It put Earth back into a state of Fantasia. If you take a close look at the Great Roar itself, you'll notice that Shiva Ganishka's head looks like it's being consumed by the abyss, and there are two reasons for that. When Ganishka lowered himself into the man-made Behelit and forced a reincarnation, his apostle soul delved into the depths of the abyss to draw out as much power as it could. When that was combined with the Sword of Actuation's space-cutting sword strike, it opened a fissure between the overlapping worlds of Berserk, which is not dissimilar to the fissure that a Behelit opens in an apostle's heart. The Sword of Actuation is essentially made out of Behelits after all, and Skull Knight created it with the purpose of sealing the God Hand into the vortex from whence they came. It backfired on him in that moment because he kind of forgot that causality is a thing, and now we have a literal hell-on-earth situation with Ganishka's body acting as the anchor for this massive planetary interstice. The vortex hasn't arrived on Earth just yet, like it did when Void became a God Hand member, but it's become the main power source for Fantasia, which begs the question, is this it? Is everyone going to hell now that hell is in charge of the world and a God Hand member is angling to become the new Supreme King? If Griffith has his way, then yes, this is the endgame scenario. In his mind, reaping every human soul and sending them to the vortex will be the ultimate victory because he will no longer have territory to conquer and people to charm or subjugate. Everything and everyone will become one in the vortex, and without proper opposition, he and his God Hand buddies can rule unopposed forever. But there's a reason that Berserk is a story that will not have an ending as grim as its overall tone, and those aren't our words, those are Kentaro Miura's. Miura's main inspiration when it came to storytelling was actually George Lucas, and Lucas is famous for one thing in that department, doing justice to the hero's journey trope. If Berserk sticks to that inspiration under Kujimori, we can expect Guts to defeat Griffith and the rest of Hell's Angels by the end of the story, and one of the best ways to achieve that goal would be to cut off Hell's control over human fate. Right now, the Vortex of Souls is getting faster by the second thanks to Griffith's constant sacrifices, and the World Spiral Tree is acting as its physical anchor. If Guts or Skull Knight were to use this sort of actuation to banish the World Spiral Tree back into the astral world, that would sever its connection to the physical world and potentially seal up any influencing entity that has power over summoning the latter. The thing about spirituality and spiritual creatures in this world is that they're supposed to operate off of human belief. People can see elves if they believe in elves strongly enough, but the God Hand and the Vortex of Souls bypasses that system through Behelitz, which turns a human being into an apostle or a God Hand member, regardless of their stance on spirituality. Griffith was agnostic at best and a non-believer at worst when Berserk started publication because he believed in faith but was cynical about God. His shock at encountering the idea of evil was plain for all to see because he couldn't believe his entire life had been dictated by this unseen entity's influence. So, to return the world to its natural state, the Vortex's forced influence on it needs to be undone, and that's why we think that by the end of Berserk, Hell will cease to exist, at least in the form we've seen it. No longer will people's souls be sent into the Vortex just because they're supposed to be involved with the God Hand's machinations. After their influence is removed, ascending to heaven and descending to Hell will be purely karmic, as it should be. Hell's doors will be sealed, and no humans will become demonic angels because that's just not the natural order of things as established by the creator of this universe. And no, we're not talking about God, we're talking about the late great Miura-sensei. But as for Berserk's version of Hell, we hope you enjoyed this breakdown of the Vortex of Souls because that's all we got for you guys today. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more Berserk content. We'll see you guys real soon with yet another video, so until then, stay safe, and as always, keep on struggling, strugglers.
Yeah, I want to say thank you guys too, man, for that. Yeah, I really enjoyed that video, brother. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, for that deep dive explanation of the Vortex of Souls. Makes you go into wonder, man, you know, with certain things. So, dude, just so deep, man. Like, if y'all caught up, man, if y'all already know, y'all, those who are already hip, who are fans, yeah, you know, it's just, it just hits you like a wow, man. Like, like you can't find, like, you can hardly find anything that can live up to that, dude. Like, that gets that deep with shit. So, but at any rate, let's go. Let's continue on to our next one real quick. So, shout out to Marvelous Anime for that.
Hi guys, I'm back with another exciting video. If you think 2026 is only about sequels, think again. Because this year is bringing some incredible brand new anime adaptations. From dark fantasy and psychological thrillers to epic action stories, these titles could... Hi guys, I'm back with another exciting video. If you think 2026 is only about sequels, think again. Because this year is bringing some incredible brand new anime adaptations. From dark fantasy and psychological thrillers to epic action stories, these titles could become the next big hits. So sit back, relax, and let's jump into the top 10 most anticipated new anime of 2026. Number 10, Mao. Supernatural mystery fans, keep your eyes on Mao, one of the most anticipated dark fantasy adaptations expected in 2026. Created by Rumiko Takahashi, the legendary author behind Inuyasha, this series takes a much darker and more psychological direction. Instead of light adventure, Mao focuses on curses, destiny, and emotional trauma that stretches across time. The story follows Nanoka, a girl who survives a strange childhood accident, only to discover years later that she was cursed during that incident. Her life becomes intertwined with Mao, a mysterious onmyoji hunting a powerful cat demon responsible for countless deaths. As they investigate supernatural cases, buried secrets begin to surface, revealing betrayal, reincarnation, and a tragic past that connects them both. What makes this series exciting is its eerie atmosphere and slow burn storytelling. The tension builds gradually, mixing folklore, romance, and psychological drama in a way that feels haunting yet compelling. If the anime captures the gothic tone and emotional depth of the manga, Mao could easily surprise audiences in 2026. If you enjoy dark supernatural stories with layered characters and mysterious twists, this is definitely one to watch. Number 9. Black Torch. Action fans, get ready. Black Torch is shaping up to be one of the most exciting supernatural adaptations expected in 2026. Originally a fast-rising manga, this series blends ninja legacy with modern demon warfare, creating a stylish and high-energy experience. The story follows Jiro Azuma, a descendant of a long line of shinobi who has the unusual ability to communicate with animals. His quiet life changes when he encounters Rago, a powerful mononoke known as the Black Cat of Calamity. After a deadly confrontation, Jiro fuses with Rago, gaining extraordinary powers while becoming a target for dangerous spirits and secret exorcist forces. What makes Black Torch stand out is its fast pacing and explosive combat. The partnership between Jiro and Rago adds personality and tension, while the contract-based power system allows for creative, intense battles. If the anime adaptation expands the world building and sharpens the action, this could become a breakout hit in 2026. For fans of supernatural action with cool transformations and relentless fights, this is definitely one to watch. Number 8. Marriage Toxin. Romance and action collide in Marriage Toxin, one of the most unpredictable new anime expected in 2026. At first glance, the title sounds lighthearted, but don't be fooled. This series blends deadly assassin battles with chaotic matchmaking in a way that feels completely fresh. The story centers on Jero, a feared poison user raised in a family of assassins. Despite his lethal skills, he faces one critical problem: he must get married to continue his bloodline. To achieve this, he teams up with a clever marriage swindler who helps him navigate the world of relationships, all while enemies constantly try to eliminate him. What makes Marriage Toxin stand out is its balance. The fight scenes are sharp and intense, yet the romantic setups create awkward, sometimes hilarious situations. Beneath the action, there's genuine character growth and emotional vulnerability. If the anime captures both the stylish combat and the chaotic romantic energy of the manga, Marriage Toxin could become one of 2026's surprise hits. For viewers who enjoy action with a twist of unconventional romance, this is absolutely worth watching. Number 7. Tomb Raider King. Action fantasy fans? This is where things get interesting. Tomb Raider King is already drawing comparisons to Solo Leveling, and not without reason. Both series feature a confident, overpowered protagonist rising through a dangerous power system. But while Solo Leveling focuses on dungeon raids and shadow armies, Tomb Raider King builds its world around ancient relics with unique abilities and personalities. The story follows So Ju-hyun, a legendary Tomb Raider betrayed by his own allies and left to die. Instead of meeting his end, he's sent back in time to before the Relic Era begins. Armed with future knowledge, he decides to rewrite history, conquering tombs, collecting powerful artifacts, and crushing anyone who stands in his way. What makes this series stand out is its strategic edge. The battles aren't just flashy, they're built on manipulation, mind games, and clever use of relic powers. If the anime adaptation captures that intensity with strong animation and pacing, Tomb Raider King could become 2026's next big power fantasy. If you loved Solo Leveling but want more strategy and relic-driven chaos, this is one you shouldn't miss. Number 6. Liar Game. Psychological thriller fans, this is where the tension rises. Liar Game is one of the most intellectually intense adaptations expected in 2026. Unlike action-heavy titles on this list, this series thrives purely on deception, strategy, and human psychology. The story follows Nao Kanzaki, an unbelievably honest college student who is suddenly dragged into a mysterious tournament called the Liar Game. The rules are simple, but cruel. Deceive others to win massive amounts of money. Trust the wrong person, and you lose everything. To survive, Nao teams up with a brilliant con artist who specializes in reading people and breaking psychological traps. Each round introduces complex mind games where intelligence matters more than strength. Alliances form and collapse. Greed takes control, and every decision carries devastating consequences. If you're wondering what it feels like, Liar Game shares the strategic intensity of Death Note and the high-stakes psychological pressure of Kaiji. For viewers who enjoy smart, suspense-driven storytelling where brains are the ultimate weapon, this is absolutely a must-watch in 2026. Number 5. The Ghost in the Shell. Sci-fi fans, this is where things get legendary. The Ghost in the Shell is returning once again, and expectations for 2026 are incredibly high. Created by Masamune Shirow, this franchise has already influenced generations of cyberpunk storytelling. Now, with a new adaptation on the horizon, fans are hoping for a fresh, yet faithful take on its philosophical core. Set in a technologically advanced future, where cybernetic enhancements are common, the story follows Major Motoko Kusanagi, a powerful cyborg working in Public Security Section 9. As she investigates cyber-terrorism and digital crimes, deeper questions begin to emerge about identity, consciousness, and what it truly means to be human. Unlike typical action anime, The Ghost in the Shell blends intense tactical combat with heavy philosophical themes. If this new adaptation balances stunning animation with thoughtful storytelling, it could redefine cyberpunk anime once again. For viewers who enjoy mature sci-fi with layered themes and intelligent world-building, this is absolutely essential viewing in 2026. Number 4. False Memory. Donghua fans, this one might seriously surprise you in 2026. False Memory is an upcoming Chinese animated series built around a fascinating psychological concept. The story revolves around memory collectors, individuals tasked with hunting terrifying entities known as bugmen, creatures born from the false memories of people with unstable or special psyches. Instead of focusing purely on action, the series dives into the fragility of memory and perception. Every mission uncovers distorted pasts, hidden trauma, and emotional scars that shape these dangerous beings. The idea that a single false memory can manifest into a deadly threat gives the world a dark and unique edge. Chinese animation has consistently delivered impressive visuals and fluid fight choreography, and expectations are high that False Memory will follow that trend with a distinctive art style and atmospheric storytelling. If the execution matches the concept, this could become one of 2026's most visually unique and psychologically engaging series. For fans of dark sci-fi with strong world building and intense confrontations, this is definitely one to keep an eye on. Number 3. Witch Hat Atelier. Fantasy lovers, this is where pure magic takes center stage. Witch Hat Atelier is easily one of the most anticipated fantasy adaptations of 2026, praised for its breathtaking artwork and deeply emotional storytelling. The story follows Coco, a young girl who has always dreamed of becoming a witch in a world where magic is thought to be a rare, born talent. However, she discovers that magic is not inherited. It's drawn through precise, intricate symbols. After a tragic accident caused by her curiosity, Coco is taken in by a mysterious witch and begins her journey to master the craft while uncovering the dangerous secrets hidden within the magical world. What makes this series stand out is its beautiful world building and soft, yet powerful emotional tone. The magic system feels creative and intelligent, while the themes of ambition, responsibility, and growth give the story real depth. If the anime faithfully adapts the manga's stunning art style and atmospheric storytelling, Witch Hat Atelier could become one of 2026's most visually enchanting and emotionally resonant fantasy series. For fans of rich world building and heartfelt magical journeys, this is an absolute must-watch. Number 2. Daemons of the Shadow Realm. Dark fantasy fans, this is where things become truly intense. Daemons of the Shadow Realm, created by Hiromu Arakawa, the legendary mind behind Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, is one of the most anticipated adaptations heading into 2026. With that creative pedigree alone, expectations are sky high. The story follows twin siblings, Yuru and Asa, who are separated at birth and raised in completely different worlds. Hidden beneath their reality is a secret realm filled with powerful entities known as daemons, beings that can be summoned and controlled. When the truth about their origins begins to surface, both siblings are pulled into a conflict that threatens to shatter the balance between worlds. What makes this series exciting is its mix of grounded emotional storytelling and explosive supernatural action. Like Arakawa's previous works, it blends political tension, moral dilemmas, and strong character writing with a tightly constructed power system. If the anime captures the depth, pacing, and intensity of the manga, Daemons of the Shadow Realm could easily become one of 2026's biggest dark fantasy hits. For fans of layered storytelling with high-stakes battles, this is absolutely a must-watch. Number 1. Sekiro: No Defeat. Taking the number 1 spot is Sekiro, a Japanese game anime adaptation inspired by the brutal world of Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Samurai action fans have been waiting for something this intense, and 2026 might finally deliver it. The story follows a lone shinobi walking a ruthless path of vengeance and redemption in a war-torn era, filled with deadly warriors and monstrous enemies. Every duel is precise, strategic, and unforgiving, where one mistake can mean death. Themes of honor, loyalty, and sacrifice drive the emotional core of the narrative. What makes this adaptation even more exciting is that the animation is expected to be fully hand-drawn, with no use of AI in the production process. That means detailed sword choreography, fluid combat sequences, and carefully crafted frames that preserve the raw, artistic feel of traditional animation. If executed properly, this could become one of the most visually stunning and emotionally intense action anime of 2026. For fans of pure samurai combat and masterfully animated battles, Sekiro: No Defeat is an absolute must-watch, and that's why it earns the #1 spot. And that's it. If you found something new to watch, make sure to smash that subscribe button for more anime content just like this. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
So things just keep getting more and more interesting for the final core of the Bleach 1000-Year Blood War anime, and a lot of it is due to, yet again, more changes, more additions, and in general just seemingly that the plot continues to quote-unquote thicken as Tite Kubo and the studio behind Bleach's 1000-Year Blood War, Studio Pierrot, continue to craft and maneuver to make sure that this is the best season possible and the best finale possible for Bleach's 1000-Year Blood War. And I'm not even gonna lie, when I heard about what was just going down right now, I was like, yeah, Tite Kubo, he's cooking in a major way. He's making sure that this is going to be the best possible meal for all parties involved. Not to mention there's a whole lot of other stuff to talk about in the world of Bleach, so without further ado, I don't want to waste your time, let's talk about it. And yes, people, hit that subscribe button and that bell so you can get notified on what's happening in the world of anime and manga. Hit them buttons. So in case you ain't been keeping up with Bleach's 1000-Year Blood War or the Bleach series as a whole, as it's continued to progressively get closer and closer to the final season, the fourth core of Bleach's 1000-Year Blood War, we keep on getting updates like this that is essentially giving us insight into just what to expect and what will possibly be unexpected, so to speak, when this final season arrives. Because Tite Kubo, you gotta give props to this man. You gotta tip your hat off. You gotta essentially just basically give the guy his props, because at the end of the day, all of the changes that are being made and all of the additions that are being added to the Bleach 1000-Year Blood War is in part largely due to the fact that you have the creator on board for better, or, well, I don't even want to say for worse, because there hasn't been anything that you could really say is for worse. Honestly, Tite Kubo being involved in this whole situation has just been a true blessing, because we always know that when it comes to an adaptation, when you have the original creator involved, it's usually for the betterment. They get to give their insight, their input, their original vision, things that they feel like could have been done better, and hey, since we have the opportunity now, let's do it. And on top of that, making sure to grab material that is still related to things and make sure that it is incorporated in a major way into the story. And before we even get into that, we had an update a while back. And before we even get into that, one of the latest updates that we got from the original creator Tite Kubo, in general from his club outside, because he gets a little bit quiet from time to time, you know, you don't hear him talk, and then when he does, it's like, oh man, what does the man got to say? Here's what was last said as of the recording of this video from Tite Kubo on his club outside. My throat and lower back have improved a lot, so I was finally able to join the anime dubbing session in person. I've been participating online for about the past month. This was the final dubbing session for the main story, where I got to record everything I hadn't been able to before. Great job, everyone. Which right then and there, that automatically gives a major signal and a major idea into where this whole thing is at, because you got to imagine that, okay, we're approaching this release date, we're approaching the summertime where things is going to start kicking off in a major way, and things is going to get real good, so to speak, for all fans involved and all parties involved for that matter. And so if he got to include himself in the final dubbing session, so to speak, ultimately that means that the progress that they have on this thing is really getting to the ending point, the finale of having this whole production, you know, get to where it needs to be so that it's ready by the time it premieres. Because this has been a long time in the making. They obviously even took a little bit of a breather in between things, because ideally a lot of fans would have loved for this thing to have happened last year. Things didn't go according to plan, and honestly it was probably better that way. They had to adjust the plan. If anything, it wasn't like a miscalculation. It was more so like, yo, let's make sure we get everything right so that when this thing happens, it's not that, you know, things is like, well, just not to the best capabilities, not to the best possibility, and make sure that things is looking the way it needs to be so that it gets a massive send-off and ultimately everybody leaves away from this thing as happy as they possibly can be. So while, yeah, it was a little bit disappointing for some people, ultimately, it was a very good thing at the same time, because getting the best product possible is what you ideally want. Getting the best possible outcome and situation for everybody that is looking forward to this thing is the way you get the dub. And I don't mean English dub, I'm talking about, again, you know, the win. And so not only did we already get that information, that essentially they're approaching the finale in a lot of different ways, and the fact that even Kubo is down to that aspect, down to the audio recordings, he is there making sure that things actually go the way they need to go. Then we even got a little piece of information also on the whole scenario as far as the casting goes, and I thought that this was pretty interesting and significant because, well, it was metaphoric and also at the same time mirroring what actually the series kind of represents as far as these characters go. Because we got information from the Bleach YouTube channel that splits Core 4's cast of characters into different groups based on the story, but apparently Aizen was separated from the rest, because you got all the characters, and you know, I imagine this is like the people that they're involved with, their factions or whatever, but then on the entire list you got Sosuke Aizen is the only one that is essentially by himself, kind of solo for the voices. And it's an interesting thing, at the same time kind of a mirroring of the whole situation, because at the end of the day, when it comes to the warring aspect of this story, when it comes to, you know, the battles and whatnot, Sosuke Aizen really doesn't show one way or another like he's truly for the side of the Serate, or he's truly for the side of Baki and his people. If anything, he probably leaned more towards, you know, the quote-unquote good guys, but Aizen has always showcased, especially once he has the opportunity, that he kind of is going for himself. He's kind of going for his best interest, what his plan and his motives are. It's just that in the scenario that's been set up for the Bleach Thousand Blood War, well, we see how they've kind of had homie up until this point at the very least, where he's like, yo dog, they got him in a chair and he's fighting, essentially lifting people up, so to speak, from a damn chair. Like the badassery, the epicness, and in general at the same time. Yo, why are we not showing more love to Sosuke Aizen? This is the time, especially when this final core comes in. Please, everybody, make sure to show love to one of the GOATs of this series, one of the best characters of this series, because homie is fighting a war from a chair. And even down to that, again, for me, it just feels like such a beautiful and poetic message at the same time, that while he's separated from everybody, it also is, if you know about the series, an indication that he don't need a whole bunch of people around him. He don't need to have an entire illustrious squad, so to speak, to do battle and combat and be, you know, pretty much one of the strongest out there, because yeah, he can take care of himself, and at the same time he's really, really strong. Almost reminds me of Stark. This is a character that if you're not really up to date with Bleach, if you've only jumped in the Thousand Blood War, you should watch, you know, the series if, you know, well, you want to be a part of things and enjoy the discussions. But there was a character, Stark, that ran under Aizen for a while back, and one of the things about Stark was the fact that he was essentially considered number one, the strongest, but within that strength, it delivered something else that was a bit unsettling to the character. The fact that because he was so strong, he was separated from everybody. Although I guess the stark contrast of that stark play on words is the fact that Aizen, regardless of what, will stand by himself. So yeah, very interesting aspect of this whole situation. Aizen being on his own is like, well, if there's any character that's gonna do this thing solo, then who better than Aizen? But then the biggest aspect of this whole situation, the reason why I decided to even talk about this, is the fact that the Bleach Thousand Blood War Core 4 is going to have what you might argue a change or an addition, because essentially what's going to be going down is the fact that some material from the light novel that gets lightly addressed in the end of the manga, but you don't really get a full exploration into this aspect, is actually going to play a major part in this situation. And one of the voice actors basically let people know of like, yo, what is actually going to happen, because it was confirmed by Renji's voice actor that we will be getting the We Do Not Always Love Ya novels adapted in Core 4 of Bleach Thousand Blood War. And while the title of that novel says one thing, if you actually pay attention, the way it is misspelled, so to speak, is tying the knot, so to speak. We do not, as in, you know, well, what do they say when you're getting married, when you're actually going to form a union with somebody that you love? You tie the knot. So don't let the wording of this novel fool you, because this is, from my understanding, a very very powerful, love-driven novel, and this is major. This is a huge aspect. A lot of people really wanted to see this. A lot of people were like, well, maybe they could make a movie at some given point or make a whole other anime, and we'll talk about that in a second, of the fact that when they're utilizing this type of material, that also, well, if people were hoping for a film adaptation of this thing, or if people were hoping for another version of this, they'll probably be waiting a long time, because if they're utilizing this content for the anime, similar to what happened in like the Boruto anime when they would adapt like certain light novels and whatnot into the actual anime and not do standalone material for it, there's a high probability that at the very least for the foreseeable future, they won't do like a big theatrical film thing for this. They're mainly going to treat the anime as like the big enchilada, so to speak, of this whole scenario. And here we got Renji's voice actor talking about Renji and Rukia's relationship in the final season, focusing on Renji and Rukia's relationship and Rukia's feelings leading up to this final moment. They spent time together like family while dog fishing. Seeing Renji stop trying to hold her back, wishing she could have a family, and sending her off with those words was so meaningful. I'm really looking forward to seeing the conclusion that they reach, that they are truly family. Even in the preview, I never thought it would end like this, especially in the early stages. This part definitely took a lot of thought. Thank you. And I guess, yeah, this is definitely, you know, a massive spoiler, so to speak, although if you read the manga, you know, and for the most part, majority of people understand or have an idea or an understanding of the ships, so to speak, at the end of the Bleach series. And it seems as though the VA was trying not to get too spoilerific as far as like telling people exactly how it's going to go beat by beat, but more so just teasing of like, yo, it's about to be a real thing. And I think that this is just great. This is a great aspect, and I don't want to shade Boruto, so I'm not gonna really go there. But one of the aspects that I always felt like when they would adapt stuff from the light novels into the TV anime of Boruto was the fact that ideally a lot of this light novel content is very much so like rich material, so to speak, is very much so coveted by fans and people that appreciate the material. And when you're going to put this in an adapted format like a TV anime or live action or whichever route you're going to utilize it for, you ideally want the best quality possible. And oftentimes the TV anime Boruto, while some of it came out pretty freaking good, oftentimes because of the scheduling or whatnot that they had with that, you know, particular time of the series, they didn't do those stories to the best of their capabilities of what they should have been. Honestly, there was times where I was like, man, if only they would have just waited and they could have did a film with this light novel or that. But thankfully with Bleach 1000 Year Blood War, we know that for the most part it looks like a movie with every freaking episode, on top of the fact that they've taken their precious time to make sure that this doesn't look like anything else. It's not a run-of-the-mill TV anime. The fact that they went seasonal with this was to make sure that they give it the best send-off possible, they give it the best quality possible, the best look possible. So I have no doubt in my mind that them adding this in here is not going to do a disservice to the material. It's not going to be like, oh, worst case scenario is the fact that because of time constraints, the fact that it's what, a 12 or 13 episode season, they're probably not going to be able to adapt every single aspect of the novel into this. But regardless of what, it's still a major win, because we know that Bleach 1000 Blood War is going to continue to look even better with all the time they've taken. And historically, from what we've seen the first 3 seasons, it looks amazing and incredible already. So we know that this is going to be incredible. This is going to be great. This is going to make, ideally, all of the fans, all of the supporters, all of the people that enjoy this material, just in general, everybody around it, very happy. And how can you be mad at that? So definitely, this is, if anything, one of the best, quote unquote, again, changes or additions to this whole thing, because in the manga, you don't really get much of these details, and it was a very unfortunate thing. And again, I hate to compare it, but it was one of its contemporaries, and I guess that's where you see some of the mirroring aspects of Naruto, was the fact that in the manga of Naruto, you didn't really get to see all the ins and outs of Naruto and Hinata's relationship. In fact, if it wasn't for the movie that they did, the last Naruto the movie, you would be a little bit surprised and taken back of like, oh, so Naruto and her ended up, how the heck did that happen? And don't get me wrong, seeing a movie of this situation would have been fire, but I'm still not going to be mad about it, because again, the TV anime is going to be movie quality. We're in a different time period, and Tite Kubo has made sure that he puts each and every ounce of effort possible to make this thing happen and make it happen right. But I guess let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. How do you feel about, yet again, another, you could argue, change that is going to be coming to the Bleach 1000 Blood War anime that wasn't present in the manga, considering the fact that it is still very much so important source material, and it still is just kind of more so an addition or an extension, or in general just a better demonstration of something that we didn't get in the manga. We didn't get to see all these details. Do you think that it's going to be for the betterment, or there's a possibility that maybe you could feel that, but it's going to be taking away from precious time that we could have got more details of stuff that actually happened in the manga, because there are some fights that people would have loved the entire episode extra length of time to add certain scenarios or whatnot, or extend the battles, or in general just give details that wasn't present in the manga. So I get if there's some people that are going to feel like, hey, it's taking away from my fights, bro, what's going on? But personally, I do feel like there's a lot of people that are very interested in seeing how the relationships and ships go. So for those people, they're going to get a win, and I trust Tite Kubo entirely that he's going to make sure that everything is done right. So there's no doubts in my mind that when it's all said and done, this is going to be great. And your overall thoughts and expectations. But that is all I have for this one. I'm Tim. As always, people, have an awesome day. Peace in. Should I add the golden rule? And remember the golden rule, anime and manga for life, boy. Should I add that back into the outro? I don't know. Let me know. Yeah, have an awesome day. Peace in.
Well, thanks to our bro for Neverworld, for the news, man, for the Bleach news and the Naruto Barto news. Appreciate you, bro. And yeah, so I gotta rewatch this too, man, because I wanna. No, I don't have to. Yeah, just my thoughts on it. I'm just like, hey, they'll come out when they'll come out. Um, they're trying to hurry up and working themselves to death to get the final arc, the final piece of a Bleach. So we'll get that when we get that. So meantime, I mean, there's a flood of different content and other shit that could be badass in its own right, that is actually out and coming out. So we shouldn't be acting like hey, we're sitting over here twiddling our thumbs, and just not looking at nothing else. What I mean, like and just that. So yeah. Um, so can't wait, man. For them to get all that shit done, and but them, leaving out Aizen, shit. I'm like, they should have had Aizen in there. So, but but yeah, y'all appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming through. This your guy Ray Hanma, one versus a million. I'm not your fan. I'm not your stand for. I am brother. Please hit the like, share, subscribe, hit the follow for over here on the Rumble so you get notified for when I go live. Before on the Rumble side, especially for movie and anime nights. And yeah, this anime night we're going to be covering Bakido, as you see in the title, Bakido, the Invincible Samurai, basically of Musashi Miyamoto, of him going through and kicking ass. So yeah, man. All right, let's get over there, man. Let's get to it, man. So give me a minute. Uh, it's gonna be fired up. So I'll send out notifications in certain people's discords about what's going on. So yeah. All right, and peace. And here's I think this is our outro. All right. And also to hit the Cash App too.